All right, everybody, I'll call our meeting to order at 6 o'clock, and I'll look for a mover and a seconder to approve tonight's agenda. So mover and seconder, please. Councillor Leroux, Councillor Levy, comments, questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And our agenda is approved for tonight. Declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Does any member of council have a pecuniary interest tonight? Seeing none, if you find yourself in that spot as we move along, let me know and we'll address it at that time. Moving on to agenda item number 4, presentations and matters for consideration. And in front of us tonight is the Main Street reconstruction streetscape design. And Stacy, so do I have a motion, mover and seconder in that I can read the motion, or I can do the presentation and get the motion after the fact? It's just not in front of me. It might be in front of council somewhere. Okay, so I'll just read it off and look for a mover and seconder. Okay, thank you. So it's a Main Street reconstruction streetscape design presentation from David Wood of Envision Tasem. That council received the committee presentation for Main Street streetscape improvements for information and discussion, and that council received the comments from the senior management team and the advisory committee member for information and discussion. And finally, and that the proposed streetscape improvements outlined within the presentation be approved in principle and incorporated into the Main Street reconstruction design. Mover and seconder on this one, Councillor Ross and Councillor Leroux, all in favor? Okay, and that is carried, and we'll turn it over to Brian for further discussion.
Thank you, Your Worship. Members of Council, the report you have in front of you tonight is for the Main Street Reconstruction Streetscape Design presentation that we received earlier in September from our streetscape design consultant, David Wood of Envision Tatham. And before I introduce him tonight to do the presentation, I'd just like to note that the presentation is conceptual in nature. We're outlining the main key elements that are going to be incorporated into the design, as opposed to fleshing out the details at this juncture. We're trying to get a consensus among council before we actually get to that point. Details like location of street furniture, garbage bins, that will be obviously addressed at a later stage. We're trying to get a consensus for the overall feel and look in the proposed improvements as part of this presentation. So I'd like to have council keep that in mind through the presentation. And so without further ado, I'll give you David Wood of Envision Tatham.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. I am pleased to be here tonight to present to you the streetscape concepts for the Main Street project. We've been kind of working at this over the last couple of years, and I think we've arrived at some pretty exciting solutions for beautification of the downtown and really kind of defining a new character for Penetanguishene in wake of the infrastructure improvements that are proposed for the downtown core. So essentially, as Brian indicated, this presentation is really to help flesh out some of the details. Despite being conceptual, we're looking at the conceptual details, the materials, the furnishings, some of the public amenity areas. In the past, we've really dealt with the roadway. This presentation is really more about back of curb to building, the pedestrian realm, so to speak. So just a quick, as far as the scope goes, as we all know, we're dealing with Main Street from Thompsons to Beck. We've also, in earlier studies, provided some conceptual design work for Robert Street West. Oh, fair enough. Thank you, Brian. And, really setting up objectives for this portion of our work with the town, we're really trying to define an aesthetic that is unique to Penetanguishene. We don't need another Oakville. There's already a Niagara on the Lake. So we're trying to tease out what we feel is the essence of this town, what the opportunities are. We want to enhance business opportunities. I think that's always an objective of any downtown commercial district. And to make sure that as many merchants have the opportunity to utilize the outdoor space to animate it for the public, but also to enhance their businesses. We want to create opportunities for community expression. You know, there's a rich cultural history here that I think you are looking for places to share with the public and visitors to your community. We've obviously are dealing with the Hill. You've got a very unique street in that case, in that regard. It can be seen as a bit of a constraint and a challenge, but I also think it's something that really makes Penetanguishene unique. So, you know, how do we improve mobility and provide areas of rest as people try to mount that hill? Creation of gateways is a key objective to our work here. And we also obviously want to create engaging environments that are accessible to all people in your community and your visitors. So as far as our streetscape design goes, as I talked about earlier, we've spent a lot of time talking about the structure of the road, the bones of the street, so to speak. And so now that we are advancing into the public realm, the pedestrian environment, I mean, there's a few really key areas that we're focusing on to kind of create that difference from what is out there today to what will be there at the end of the project. So we're really focusing on the downtown intersections, creating those gateways into the downtown core, additionally to the ones into the community as a whole, and make sure there's amenity areas for the public to utilize. And when I say amenity area, I mean places for people to sit with shade, the convenience of garbage cans and bike racks, information boards, those kind of things. Outdoor retail and patios, we've talked about. Site furnishings and surface materials are another area that we'd like to enhance. There is a lack of trees currently on the street, so we've tried to find every opportunity to add a greening of the streetscape and introduce trees for just aesthetics, but also just for microclimate and shade for pedestrians. We want to make sure that the streetlight program that you have already embarked on is maximized through this effort, and also improve accessibility. I think that's an underlying theme to a lot of public space development these days, and rightfully so. So just as we're going to start at the bottom at the waterfront, and we're going to move towards Thompson Street. But you know, we've seen these cross sections before. We've summarized them more graphically just to help you understand what the differences are between now and the future. So this is an existing image of the section between Beck Boulevard and Water Street. The road is essentially staying in its same alignment. Where we can provide benefit in this section, because the hydro lines are staying, we are challenged at providing street trees in this area, because there's hydro poles on both sides, and we are unable to plant trees underneath the lines. So we are focusing in on the bump outs, the areas that are expansions of the intersection areas to define the parking better and bring plant material out into the street. So you can sort of see in the distance there a tree would be planted in those areas. They will provide greening along the street. And also we're going to start introducing some of the decorative pavement materials that are going to define the downtown core. So it's almost like a progression of materials as you arrive at the center, which we view to be Main and Robert Street. Between Water and Robert Street, this is the hill portion of the downtown. We are looking at really trying to define the parking areas. So as you can see from this cross section, we've left the travel lanes to be asphalt, but we are looking at putting some sort of decorative paving in the areas of the angled parking. And through our previous discussions on road alignment, because we have decreased the angle of the parking to provide a safer exit, so you can see a little bit better as the traffic coming at you as you're pulling out. We've gained some extra space in the cross section that we have put equally into the boulevard space. So there's a little bit more room between the back of curb and the building frontages now through the proposed design, which we are proposing to put some advantages against the buildings for outdoor retail displays and other such things. So that can be seen in this image a little bit better. This is an existing conditions, and that would be the proposed. So we've got decorative paving in the angled parking. Similar to the bump out language we talked about in our last section, we will be defining the intersections with plant material and introducing some trees at the intersections. To deal with the hill itself, looking at providing a heavy texture on the sidewalk surface. So instead of having a textured joint at every 5 feet like a typical sidewalk. We would have something much more frequent so that in the wintertime, and certainly in those fringe seasons when we're getting slush and ice, that there's a little bit better grip as you're climbing the hill. And creating that extra zone beside the building that is dedicated for merchants to put out tables full of sweaters, or if you're a flower shop, you can put some plants on the street just to sort of better demonstrate your wares, and also help animate the environment as people are coming through the town. Between Robert Street and Point Street, this is kind of an interesting section. This is the area that in the past we've talked about the opportunities to actually introduce patios on Main Street. With the grades of the hill portion, it's very difficult to obviously put patios out there. There is a bit of a grade between Roberts and Point Street, but we think it's manageable, and I think through past pilot projects you've demonstrated that there is some success to exploring that opportunity, and the businesses along the west side of the street tend to be restaurant based and service based. So in this scenario, we are looking at something called a flexible street on the west side of the road, which really gives us versatility to not have to install the temporary systems that have been in the past, to do something that is intended, that allows the businesses in this area to put out patios if they want to or not. And I'll explain that just in a second here. So this is our existing image. This would be a version of the proposed, which would be a mountable curb. So the pedestrian environment and the road environment in this concept become a little bit less defined. So instead of having a full 6-inch barrier curb, we'll have a slight mountable curb that'll give you about a 3-inch profile. The cars will park kind of up onto the boulevard and be defined by a series of planters and some low walls that would sort of separate the walking zone beside the buildings and the parking zone beside the road. In that central zone, besides the planters and the walls, would also be where your light standards would go. Any tree planting opportunities would also be utilized that. So it'd be kind of a utility strip between the walkway and the parking. And the space is tight in here, and we would really like to see some trees in these planters, because I think given the widths we're dealing with here and the fact there is no overhead hydro, this is a really good opportunity to introduce trees into the downtown core. But it would require some extra investment in some underground planting infrastructure. You wouldn't just be able to put those trees in that very narrow planter. So we'll explore that through the detailed design once we kind of wrap our head around some of the budget numbers on this. So this is what these planters can really add, sort of a gateway feel into the downtown. This is downtown Collingwood on Highway 26. This is a project we did and introduced some planters, and the town does a great job of filling them full of perennials and annuals every year and maintaining them as a really powerful and colorful gateway into the downtown core as you're driving through, with the hope of capturing people to stop and shop, stick around for a bit. And so that's the typical condition should no one choose to put out a patio. In the patio scenario of the same street, and this is where the flexibility comes in, and as you can see in this cross section, we're now seeing a full patio put beside the building. And that's what that might look like. So how this works is that along the curb face, we put in, there'd be removable bollard mounts. So the bollards could be installed, so similar to how businesses in the pilot project made an application to put the patio out, and a timber boardwalk was put into the parking stall to divert the public around it. In this case, all we're doing, we're not building those timber things because we don't have the parking stalls anymore. We're actually just putting bollards out to block cars from parking in that zone, and allowing the pedestrians to utilize that extra paved area. And it's quite successful. So if the next business doesn't have a patio, then the cars in the next business still can park in the spots, and the public would then move towards the walkway that's building side. So there's in this scenario, it allows you the ability to close off all the parking, keep it all open, particularly in the wintertime. It's often the case, or have a bit of both happening at the same time, while still looking like it was intended and not sort of a temporary solution. So, and obviously, again, would like to see trees in the planters because I think it also adds some benefit to the patios and also that pedestrian realm. So here's an example. You know, it may be difficult from the renderings, but from a real life application. This is King Street in Kitchener. This won a lot of awards for the application of this technique. And as you can see, the cars are parked up on the boulevard, separated by light standards, bollards, the garbage cans, the bus shelters, and a clear zone is maintained between the cars and the pedestrian surface. And as you can see, here's a car leaving the parking stall and coming off the mountable curb system. In the bottom right-hand corner, you can sort of see a mixture of both things happening. In the distance, there's some patios out between sections where there's cars parked. This is another really successful example of a flexible street, one in Market Street in Toronto. So again, you can see in the image the little metal plates on in front of the car that would allow those bollards that are between the car and the walkway to be moved towards the roadway to block parking off altogether. So in this street, they sometimes close down all the parking and throw street festivals and events type thing. And this is just another example that actually put the trees in the parking stall areas, and the cars parked between the trees. And there's also further down the street here, there'd be patios and even outdoor tents with during markets and fairs for the merchants to utilize this zone as well. Some points to Edward Street. This gets so now we're into the highway commercial portion of the main street. I think, you know, overall the applications and the spatial setup is going to be very similar today. Right now there's an asphalt strip between the sidewalk and the curb. So what we'd propose, similar to the Beck to Water Street portion, is to bring those materials that we used in the downtown, and instead of putting asphalt there, start introducing those a little bit further down the street. So that zone would be pavers as opposed to unit pavers, and also, as opposed to asphalt. And also, I think there's a really interesting scenario that's set up between where the road positioning is between points, and I'm going to go all the way to Thompson, with the hydro infrastructure switching sides and their positioning. We're able to introduce trees on this section of street on one side between Thompson and Edward on the east side, and then at Edwards we can get some trees on the west side. So there would be a continuous row of trees on at least one side of the street between Thompson and Points. So this is kind of an example of what that looks like today. We'd introduce the decorative pavers, and we'd also be able to provide some trees on the west side of the street between Points and Edward. And just to demonstrate that again with the spatial allocations that have been discussed with the bingo hall and pushing the parking back onto their property, it allows us to reclaim that for the public, and we're able to get a sidewalk and also a row of trees behind the sidewalk between the commercial property and the sidewalk to provide shade and also create that gateway feel into the community. So that's just a brief overview of some of the opportunities that we've found in each section of the road as we move up from Beck to Thompson. The intersections are another area that we focused on, and I mean, I think in a lot of ways, because a lot of the boulevard space is too narrow to really introduce trees, we are able to apply some decorative pavements and some nice furnishings, but to really get that impact in the downtown, that sort of gateway feel, that transition from where we are today, we think the intersections offer a lot of opportunity. So I mean, first and foremost, they're going to be made accessible in accordance with AODA. We'll have the audible signals. There'll be tactile warning strips utilized in the design. But we really see Points, Roberts, and Water as being three defining intersections in the downtown core. Further to what we more see as the community gateways at Beck and Thompson. So we would like to see identify these as enhanced intersections with some decorative treatments to help announce them as being enhanced. And with respect to the community gateways, there are still some design, some of the designs of the function of those end intersections at Beck and Thompson's are still in flux right now. So We have not explored the gateway potential of those yet. I think there's a lot that can be done at the waterfront as an entry point into the park that is beyond the scope of this project. And at Thompson, there's some consideration of how traffic moves through there. So until the traffic is understood and the traffic design is completed, the gateway conversation is going to be delayed until that's all resolved at this point. But so for the purposes of this presentation, we're focusing in on the downtown gateways, the downtown intersection gateways. So what we'd like to do in order to really make these intersections identifiable, further to the accessible ramps and the tactile warning strips, creating larger queuing areas, the areas that, as you're waiting for the light to cross, they're bigger so that you can, you're not feeling like you're pushed to the edge. We'd like to define them with concrete crosswalks, and in the center of this area, we'd like to utilize some decorative paving to really enhance those spaces. And obviously, all intersections that have signals will have the audible signals as well. The other intersection is enhancements that we'd like to also introduce, or possible further down between Beck and Water Street, where we have the parallel parking along the side of on each side of the street. At the intersections, we can, instead of just having asphalt painted to define those parking stalls, we're proposing to create the bump outs we spoke of earlier. And the bump outs really help box in the parallel parking, but they also allow you to shorten the crossing distances. So instead of having to cross 4 lanes of asphalt, you're only having to cross 2. It also pushes the pedestrian who's waiting to cross out further into the intersection so that cars can see them. They're not hidden behind parked cars. So in doing that, it also allows us to create some amenity areas that provide opportunities for tree planting to help green up that section of street, as well as provide seating and bike parking and trash receptacles and other such amenities. And these are also great areas for downtown VIAs and improvement committees to really focus in on how to do some seasonal displays, public art. I mean, these little planter beds that the bump outs facilitate are kind of limited by the creativity of the people in the community. I mean, here's an example of Halloween where we put skeletons in them. So I've seen them with Christmas trees. They can be switched over and modified to suit the seasonal events. Site furnishings are an important detail, and so we've made some suggestions of some possible candidates to suit the design criteria, but we're going to be speaking more in general terms as to what we're trying to achieve when we're selecting this furnishing. So Penetanguishene, I'm not sure if you're aware, has a lot of grade, a lot of hills, which makes creating flatter areas a little challenging to provide seating opportunities, particularly on the Roberts to Water section of the downtown. So, how do we turn that challenge into something that we can utilize in our design? So, for me, it really comes down to perhaps we can introduce some low seating walls that we can position in the right way to help create some flatter areas in between these walls, while providing opportunity to sit. And it also, I think it'd be a very unique feature for this community, something that I can't really think of another community that's kind of utilized that design language. So we're solving a problem. We're also creating sort of a unique character. We could use, the walls could be faced with local materials or something that appears to be dry stack limestone as an example, to kind of bring us back to some of the, the local language, local materials, but also given this town's connection with its past and its traditions of storytelling. I think, in speaking with the Downtown's Improvements Committee, they talked about running walking tours, potential ghost tours of downtown Penetanguishene. So I really like the idea of kind of connecting with the past and sort of expanding upon that from Discovery Harbor and St. Marie among the Hurons, and allowing that to happen by using materials that are kind of reflective of an older time, but done in a contemporary way, if that makes any sense. So I think the walls really provide that opportunity, particularly with this cladding. These walls can also be outfitted with seating, so it's not just a cold concrete coping you're going to be sitting on. In areas where we want to promote seating, we can fasten proper seats with benches, with arms and backrests on them. but in other areas can just be a quick place to sit down and take a load off. Looking also for furnishings that reflect that same language. I heard strongly that there's obviously a real connection to the harbor in the nautical history in this community. There's been light standards selected that sort of plays into that same aesthetic. And so, for me, that means something that is very clean and simple, something that is maybe got a little tinge of an industrial feel to it. So we found a couple of really nice benches that again, balanced between sort of an old and nautical feel while providing a bit of a contemporary look. So, this is just an example of one that would suit that in our opinion. It's also conveniently available in a wall top mount version as well. So you can see here it stands alone on legs or walls. And a little later on, when we get into the amenity areas, there's an opportunity to really look at sort of a circular or an arced bench, and this also fits into that same category as far as aesthetics. Compatible trash recycling receptacles. Again, we can match all that aesthetically. And bike racks, we're sort of looking at something instead of the traditional ring that you see in a lot of communities, because of the hill here and the grades. When you put those things on an angle, they kind of look like there was a mistake made. So what's nice about the arced versions of the bike racks is that we can put them on even on the hill portion where we think that we might want to have some bike parking without them looking odd on the slope. And just a quick aside, there's also bike racks are also a great opportunity in the future for you to really create that community expression, to commission artists to help kind of create some unique things to Penetanguishene to tell your story, but also provide a place for people to tie up bikes. In the section that we were talking about, the removable bollards to define the parking and provide those patio zones, obviously looking for, again, another bollard that suits the aesthetic theme that we're talking about. So really what we're talking about is a family of furnishings. We're focusing in on something that we can knit together when they're all seen as one, look like they were thought out as one and not just a hodgepodge of ideas. So this is kind of all that stuff pulled together with your existing light. And there's lots of opportunities to sort of refine this and work with the town council and the improvements committee to make sure we got the right furnishings. Surface materials, we're looking, the paver that we're looking for in the roadway is one that was successfully used in both the Kingston Market Square and also Hess Village in Hamilton. It's a paleo paver. Despite looking like a standard paver, it's very robust and thick. It has a locking system underground, so they look like individual pieces, but there's this whole system that makes them lock together into a monolithic slab. They're designed for heavy truck traffic, the turning movements of tractor trailers, Ford F-150s with scarabs being pulled behind them and other such things. So I think they're ideal for that, and because of the locking system, makes them suitable to look at placing on the hill as well. So there's going to be very little movement or shift in these pavers. So again, it's a good option. On the pedestrian pavers, to balance out the sort of the heritage brown textures and colors, we're looking sort of for a cleaner and a tighter paver on the pedestrian surfaces that are set up in a random pattern, maybe a gray to beige contrast to tie into the road pavers. We talked about the texturing on the sidewalk, so we always look to areas that have this problem in mounds and so we've looked at Halifax and St. John's and how they've dealt with a lot of the pedestrian surfaces. Some of these are old pictures, so excuse their age and their weathered nature, but I think the overall intent is that what you would do even with simple materials like concrete is to put score lines in them much more frequent on those steep portions of your downtown, which kind of creates an interesting aesthetic while providing you a little bit of extra grip. So these are older image, but on a new installation, they could be made to look quite sharp. So aside from sort of the standard materials and pavers and furnishings, We've identified a few areas in the downtown that we think we can kind of enhance aesthetically and also for public benefit. We talked about the bump outs. We'd like to see a setup where we do have a tree, a bench, some trash receptacles as a minimum at the intersections. We'd like to bring that decorative paving treatment that we looked at into these zones while the walkway surfaces and the queuing areas remain concrete. And just to define that, I mean, part of the inspiration here, I like this planter. I don't know who did it, but it's done well and it's well maintained. And what's nice about it is someone gives it a lot of love and care. The color is punchy, and I think the same maintenance in the planting approach to this should be kind of carried throughout the downtown. I also like the use of armor stone. Again, going back to that the natural material of the area. The stone in this is a little bit rough, and what I'd like to do is sort of look at a similar approach, but with more rectangular pieces of armor stone with tighter joints that could also, again, serve as a secondary seat for somebody if they wanted to sit down and didn't feel like they needed to have an actual bench. So this is a project we did at the Collingwood Public Library, utilizing a very similar technique with the armor stone, and it's extremely successful. So we see flanking each of these bump outs with a long row of these tight armor stone, and as you can see, there's a lady sitting at the on the wall at the end. There's also the opportunity to include a bench in that stagger with a trash receptacle that's set far enough away from the bench that you're not being bothered by wasps in the summertime and the odors. So we can kind of we can work on the positioning of those as well. And then put low plantings so that visibility into the intersection for cars coming along isn't impeded. So everything would be low, lots of opportunity for the Downtown Improvements Committee to do some annual and perennial displays in there. It's also where you might put your seasonal displays. And that's just another angle of what that might look like. At Roberts in Maine, to me, I've identified this in my head as being the kind of the epicenter of where everything comes together, which is why we've kind of coined the phrase crossroads. And I found it really interesting looking at some of your official plan mapping and trails mapping, that the Trans-Canada Trail comes into the downtown core here and actually turns down the hill at this point. So I think right now this is where the kiosk is. I think it belongs there. Right now the design of that space doesn't really facilitate, I think, successful use. It's kind of been filled. So what I'd like to see here is some planting introduced. I think it's a great area to introduce some bike parking. I think doing something really meaningful with the information kiosk, tying it into the materials we talked about earlier, providing shade trees and integrating it with that enhanced intersection we talked about earlier. So the base of the kiosk could have the same stone veneer treatment that the walls had that we talked about. On that it could be wayfinding signs, merchant store location signs, event panels, all those type things. So it would be a four-sided structure, and it would be supported by those low walls we talked about for seating with benches mounted onto the top of them, and again, trees for shade and also for aesthetic benefits. We've also looked at the layout of that, and this is just a quick revisit of some of the recommendations previously made for the Robert Street West portion, where we looked at applying similar techniques of reducing the angle of the parking to get more boulevard space. So what would be proposed through this would be to design that so that it could be plug and play to a future initiative to improve Robert Street West, so it wouldn't be lost work. You could literally bring the wall structures in and kind of continue on with this idea. So that has been considered in the design as well. For me, one of the really incredible opportunities here is the taper in the roadway as you come through the intersection down the hill at Robert Street. Right now, for the angled parking, there's sort of a hatched out area that pushes cars towards the west to get around the angled parking. We are proposing to formalize that and reclaim that road space and put it back in the boulevard as opposed to just hatching it out. And I think in this case, it provides us, again, with the use of those walls, the ability to create some level areas at the top of the hill for seating and to create some rest opportunities. It also allows us to get a tree potentially in there, bike racks and other opportunities. But I think most importantly, it has a fantastic view that has the backdrop of Georgian Bay behind it. And I think this is really, to me, someplace I think I would look at a public art piece, something that's really meaningful to your community, something that you would have commissioned by an artist that would become an icon of your community. You know, coming through the intersection, it would sit silhouetted against the sky and the bay. It could tell many stories depending on what the theme is. And so at the moment we're calling it Harbor Lookout. You can brand it however you want as the ideas kind of solidify around that. But certainly a fantastic opportunity to provide a rest stop at the top of the hill, which is probably where you need it the most, because right now there's not a lot of space when you arrive there. And this is just a view looking up the hill that, again, because of the angle you're on, it would be silhouetted against the sky. The piece itself is just a conglomeration of a bunch of stuff. It's kind of an expression of an art piece. We're not suggesting anything there at all. Just another look at it. The one that exists today is the one that's mid-hill at the municipal parking lot on top of the retaining wall. I think this is a great space. It's in the right spot with the staircase coming up from the parking lot and also the public walkway that traverses the two streets. But I think there's one thing that really stuck with me in our earlier conversations with the Downtown Improvements Committee is the idea of using the space to bring crowds of people and tell stories. And someone even threw out the idea of putting a little a gas fire pit in there, which has its challenges in a public environment. But I mean, I think I understand the intent of what was being expressed in that comment. So, you know, I think, you know, it doesn't need to be over-designed. I think it just needs to be rethought a little bit. So we pulled things out of it, created a more substantial planting in the back of that space against the retaining wall and the railing. Try to create an environment that can really foster the growth of a tree. And then utilize those walls to support this semicircular bench that you could, if you were a tour guide, stand in the middle and line people up. But it also provides just some kind of unique, informal seating opportunities where one or two people could gather and socialize and create those opportunities. It's another example of what that might look like. So between that, the mid-block rest area and the one at the bump out that's created at Water Street, you know, we've got three opportunities to do some really meaningful gathering spaces for people that will help them break up the walk up the hill if you do have mobility impairments or challenges in that regard. Just a really quick conclusion and some of the outstanding items like street lighting. You know, you've done a really great job of selecting a fixture. We're going to incorporate the existing fixtures in their existing location where we can. We may have to move them in or out a little bit depending on how the road's configured, and we're going to be looking for opportunities to introduce additional ones where required. Tree planting, we are going to manage all the typical urban challenges of trees, salt, pollution, the other things that tend to, you know, we all plant trees to make sure with the vision that they're going to grow to 20 years old and provide us a nice shade canopy. The reality of a lot of urban tree planting is that we put the tree in with the best intentions and watch it die over the period of 7 years and then go through a tremendous amount of expense replacing it with another small tree and never getting to where the vision is in the first place. So how we're going to manage that is we're going to try to provide them as much protected soil volume as we can get. And again, we talked about those protected planters, which would be full of uncompacted fertile soil as opposed to compacted granulars that would support pavement. And where pavement is required, we are going to explore some underground infrastructure. This is an example of some green infrastructure called soil cells, which provides a structural matrix full of the fluffy soil that's strong enough to hold the walkway pavers and the sidewalks on top of it, so that the tree actually has some environment under the sidewalks to actually grow and thrive. And with that, I'll conclude the presentation and open it up to questions.
Okay, thank you, David. Council, any questions for David? I've got a couple, but I'm sure we all got a couple, so I'll turn the floor over. We'll start at the far end. Councillor Mayotte, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The one question, actually, a couple of questions with the ballards, you call them? Ballers? Excuse me. Like, you know, they're nice in Kitchener and Hamilton, but I don't think they have a winter as harsh as us. We get a lot of snow, so of course, on that hill, we're putting a lot of sand and a lot of salt. How is that going to affect the cap? Is that going to corrode it? Is that going to rust it? Because I think, Brian, you know how much sand we have to put on that hill and salt in wintertime just for the vehicle not to spin. It's the caps that I'm worried about. Are they going to corrode when?
Well, they tend to be they're stainless steel, so they are the right materials to resist that. It's a question that as we get into the detailed design of this, we will be looking at successful installations of the bollards and unsuccessful. A lot of it has to do with the quality of the product that you're using. They all look the same. Everybody copies each other in the catalogs, and you can get a very affordable bollard, put it in, and watch it rust. That's the same with benches and trash receptacles. So we'd be looking at that. But I think one thing I wanted to point out, and perhaps I didn't go into detail on that in the presentation, but I'm hoping not to have to utilize them as much in the wintertime. With this scenario, one of the early inspirations for that stone wall we showed was this scenario here. My concern always with the grade on this, no matter what, the business owners are going to have to build some sort of level platform for the patio. You know, there's still enough grade here. You couldn't put a patio table without watching things roll off. What does that look like? You know, I mean, when we finish this, we want this to look like this was intended an intended space. So, you know, to me, the worst case scenario I imagine is doing this nice streetscape and then seeing this like timber platform, and you're looking at the butt end of it. So what I'd like to see is these walls placed strategically where the patios may go if they were to ever go out, so that from the roadside, they would be hidden by that wall when the patio is in place. And when the patio is not there, it really serves that other purpose, just to provide an informal place to sit down. And that would all be clustered in that sort of utility zone. So with those in place, you know, your bollards would be certainly necessary in the summertime if you're trying to close off the parking, and that's great. In the wintertime, I think between the light standards, the planters, and the walls, you may not need to have the bollards to demarcate the parking area, if that makes any sense. So we wouldn't have to move the bollards to the inside of that system because there's already enough stuff there to stop the car from encroaching onto the sidewalk, which is the only reason they're necessary. When you have just a one continuous plane of paving from the building face to the curb, at some point, if you want to designate the parking stall, you need to put the bollards there. But if you have enough stuff in between those two zones, then the bollards are certainly necessary against the road to block parking. But when they're not there, you don't. So we look at that in consideration of trying not to have to put the bollards in the wintertime, because that's when they're most vulnerable to getting tapped by a plow, the pressure of snow piled on them, all those other things that tend to reduce longevity of urban features.
It's not the post itself, it's the cap that you could put in the hole. That's what I'm worried about.
Oh, the one on the surface.
On the surface, like, is that going to rust, or are the guys have to sit there in the wintertime with the hammer and the chisel to take it out because of the sand and the salt that's corroded? That's what I'm worried about.
Well, I mean, it's my experience with removable bollards, and as much as Kitchener is further south, they are also in that zone that gets a lot more freeze thaw. We tend to go into cold. So they are managing the salt and the ice in that fringe zone as much as anybody. So I think the trick here is to make sure we understand what's worked for other communities and what hasn't, and pick the right product. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Levy is next, I think. Oh, sure, I can. Councillor LaRue, then I'll just come down the table, sure. Good. Councillor Lauder.
Thank you, Worship. David, thank you very much. I really like, especially this picture here. I'm a fan. I was struggling with the patios, but with the front wall there, which, as you say, gives you decorative and seating capability when the patios aren't in use, but it also hides that the temporary leveling platforms. That's going to be the major concept is to get an effective temporary leveling platform that's easy to put in and take out on a regular basis, and looks good from its north side looking down at it, sort of thing. So all that's good, but I do like that very, very much. The bollards, in order to have them in and out so that people can park in front of some stores and not others, We did have one picture. Here, the bollards are set far apart. We would not be able to do that. There is one picture whereby there were double, if not triple, the number of bollards. And in order to have that designation, so
Right.
that would increase costs there, but once again, something to consider. My only comment is your textured concrete going down the hill.
Right.
I actually walked in St. John's on that same, and it does work very well. I'm minor concerned with maintenance because I'm sure it would add a little bit to the maintenance and the necessity of how we look after that, but it's something for our maintenance department to look into in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And just you talk about adjustable patios. If you look at White's Road at Edmonton, I took some pictures of it out there at FCM. So they've got a section out there, and so it's a good example of maybe what our store owners could consider.
Right.
And then Brian, just in terms of is that I guess the Good Roads or Amos, and I can't remember the firm that I was talking to, but they have different textured stuff. Rick Newlove was part of their group as well, so there's different textures out there as well. To your point, up the hill, and different people, smart people are thinking of smart things to solve problems, I can tell you that. Councillor Levy.
Thank you very much, Mayor Marshall. First of all, I wanted to compliment you on the selection of the contemporary furnishings with a nod to our geography and history without trying to make us look Victorian.
Right.
You're still acknowledging who we are and what the past is. So I'm really impressed with that. Few quick questions. Have you had any discussion about opportunity for tree planting on private property on the main street?
No, we haven't. I mean, that's always a possibility. It's kind of beyond the scope of what we are doing. So, yeah, I guess the answer is...
I just say it, I raise it because it would offer the opportunity for more foliage without the incredible expense of the typical urban planting in a cage type of thing. Anyway, I just throw that out there. Regarding the textured sidewalks, I can see going downhill, it would always be a good thing. Has there been any discussion with people using mobility devices on it being more difficult to push uphill?
What I like about this system, and sometimes the simplicity is really where the beauty lies in it, is, we looked at a bunch of different ways of providing that extra texture trying to get up this hill, and a lot of them are very expensive. And let's face it, sidewalks need to be maintained. And the beauty about just using concrete is it's not really introducing something that's different than what everybody's used to using. So the jointing that would be utilized is similar to any sidewalk joint. So it's not creating a larger obstruction. It might create a bit of a more of a the kind of the digga type thing, for lack of a better word.
That was good.
But, yeah, trademarked. But so it isn't anything that somebody with a mobility device isn't used to having to traverse anyhow. It's just going to be more frequent in that period, in that short period, which would help with wheels and other things that you're trying to push up, even a stroller.
Thank you very much. I'll go just to my, I've got a few others, but they're minor. I want to go to the most important one. You talked about bump outs between Beck Boulevard and Water Street.
Yes.
And I do believe that council was extremely opposed to additional bump outs in that area. So I'd just like a little clarification perhaps from Brian. This is where the politics
Sure.
hits the design issue, but we're very clear that we didn't want additional bump outs.
The curb alignment was proposed. That's proposed. It had the bump outs. That was approved. Had the bump outs in it. So we're basically just using the curb alignments that were approved. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good enough. Thanks. I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Might I clarify that point too?
Sure.
Please.
The bump outs, they're not mid-block bump outs that were created for the sole purpose of being a bump out. These are in the zones that currently right now you can't park in because of access to the intersections. So right now they just tend to be asphalt, and so we're just really better defining the parking stalls at the intersections and creating the bump outs there to allow us to get some vegetation and some amenity areas into the intersections, and also create some pedestrian safety benefits as well.
Thank you very much. That's great, thank you.
You're staying within the sandbox that council allowed you to play in, so that's good. So I'll skip down to the far end here, so Councillor Ross, and then I'll come back through the deputy mayor and finish with me.
Wow. Thank you. Councillor Levy stole my last point. My next comment, Brian, I think you said a while ago you were hoping to put the RFP out in November, hoping to award in December, January, and I'm hearing there's still lots of work to do. So I'm wondering, are we going to meet the deadline here to get this project done, or are we delaying? Because 2 meetings ago we said we want this done in 17. So I'm wondering timeline, where are we, and are we going to be able to achieve that? So that's question number 1. Number 2, I heard lots of talk about asphalt. I've said time after time again about concrete on the drivable surface, and I haven't seen that reflected here. My worry is we put out this RFP package, no one's hearing, seeing anything about concrete, and it's hard to bid on something you don't see or hear or have a footnote about that, so I'd really like to hear some of that. Councillor Rose would like me to say this. He didn't say it, but I'm going to say it for him. He's talked lots about pavers. He brought up about AMO and Windsor. Well, I think he talked tonight about the interlocking underneath, but his concern was that AMO in Windsor this year, that they're walking down the street and the pavers are lifting and they're not all level. So I think when it's installed, it's going to be fine, but what's the 2, 3, 4, 5, 10-year lifespan? And are we going to create tripping hazards? So I think it's solved that, but I want to ask that for Councillor Rose. I think another councillor does, but I do like the furnishings, and that's it.
Thank you, through your worship, to Councillor Rawson. That is our intent to get the tender out before the end of this year. I was originally wanting to do it in November, but hopefully, if we can get at least approval in principle tonight, we can finish the detailed design work and get some detailed design drawings for the tender package, because this is largely the outstanding work related to the project. Related to the concrete item, we are still planning on doing a provisional item within our tender to allow for a concrete paved road surface, so that hasn't changed, and we'll still be doing that.
Deputy Mayor, please.
Yeah, well, he stole my thunder. I was going to ask a few questions about that as well. My concern, and I think you've addressed that, was we have some pavers in the middle of our main street down near the municipal parking lot, and to tell you the truth, it's a terrible mess, and I wouldn't want to see that happen if we do all this paving. So is there new technology in how they're installed that prevents grass and growing up in between all these pavers?
So I'd have to see the pavers you're speaking of. I don't know how they were installed. I mean, there are proper ways of installing them, and there is no shortage of pavers that have been installed incorrectly out there, which you're seeing. So we've got a fortunate situation here where we're rebuilding this road from scratch. There's, the trick to pavers, to make sure they don't settle and they don't heave, is to make sure that they don't have expansive soils underneath them. We're going to be creating a compacted base through this, from building face to building face, when we put this back together, that is going to provide a consistent, uniform substructure for the pavers. And if they're installed correctly, they really shouldn't be an issue. The other beautiful thing about pavers, and we often have this conversation about pavers versus decorative concrete as an example. Decorative concrete is always a great option. I have no problem. We've used it before. The challenge I have certainly on a streetscape and in a municipal environment is that concrete looks great when it goes down on day one. Over time, when there's a service connection that has to be fixed or something, we start cutting them up. The fancy patterns and the color, you'll never match the color again when you patch it together. The mats that they use to create the patternings, it's not the same contractor fixing it after the service. So there'll be a guy with a trowel on his side trying to mimic the brick pattern. And I find over time that street will get very tired looking and very patchy. Oftentimes you just see them patched with asphalt, for lack of a better patch. So what I like about pavers is that when those things happen, you can lift them up, put them on a pallet, do your work, put them back, and it's seamless. And if there are, you know, if there are an isolated area where there is a little bit of settling or heaving, then it is very easy to go fix that utilizing the same materials. So, I mean, there are some trade-offs for both techniques, but I always find that for streetscapes, they tend to have a longer staying power and look good for a longer period of time if you start using kind of modular materials that you can fix and amend as you go, as the problems
I really
arise.
like the idea of using different concrete or blocks, whatever you call them, and the pavers. I think that's really nice. The other question I wanted to
Sorry, you need
ask-
if your mic just,
Sorry. I don't think to turn that on. Yeah.
there we go.
The other thing was the trees and the vegetation. I noticed in the town of Midland that the trees that they've installed in their boxes are getting pretty big. And I just wondered, I'm sure that you will take that into consideration and put the proper trees so that they don't grow too big. Is that possible?
Well, I mean, maintenance is a large part of this conversation. Pruning can help with that. The first objective that we always approach tree planting in an urban environment is pollution, insult, and heat resistance. So the list of trees that fall within that category that are successful typically in downtown is quite small. So, yeah, we'll be, obviously, if that's an objective that we want to make sure we don't have large trees. In the bump outs, we have a little bit more room. We're not up against building faces, so we are pulling them out into the road. And I think a little, given the fact that we don't have the opportunity to do continuous rows of trees, I don't really see a huge problem having some larger trees dotted throughout the downtown. So.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Well, I'll go last. Councilor Rose would be happy I had his on his list too. So apparently we all heard Dan loud and clear about the product. Similar to speaking of the trees, they do it in Creemore as well. So Creemore has a nice downtown. They've used the trees to hide the hydro lines. So I guess in my mind, our trees will be similar to Creemore. I assume you're familiar with the Main Street of Creemore and those type of trees.
Yeah, I mean they've utilized a combination of larger and smaller trees, but yeah, for the most part, they fall within that category of able to survive in those environments for sure.
And then the other one is the hydro lines and the cable lines. So it seems to me from Thompson to Edward, we could have all those on one side of the street, I think on the west side.
Correct.
And then from Edward to Points, they could all go back to the right side, because right in front of the Angel Gate Mall is actually, those are just trunk lines.
Yeah.
There's no distribution off that. It's not the tree and branch structure, right? So it's the fiber and it's the main trunk lines for Bell and for Rogers. So I don't know why they couldn't go onto the one side, Brian, at least have that conversation. And if there's a cost associated with that, I'm sure council would want to know what that was. But, we concede that the burying the hydro lines are beyond the scope of our financial capabilities. But just because we have to have ugly poles doesn't mean we have to be ugly on both sides of the street. I mean, maybe we can try and manage that to have it on one side and the other. And if you look at the trunk lines, and I have the benefit of being a communications guy, so working with Bell and Rogers for those years, I recognize what's going on out there. So I think there's a real opportunity from Water Street down to the town dock. A little more problematic because of one side of the street, but then you've got that rear entrance, Brian, where there's actually a distribution leg there that Bell and Rogers could sneak off of, actually plant a pole or two and actually feed Phil's Restaurant and a few others from rear lot access. So there's opportunity there for a good, healthy conversation with Bell and Rogers and give them the look that said, hey, we want this done. But aside from that, I like everything we've talked about here. I think council's brought up some great activities, and I'm glad too, because I was a little concerned when I saw the bump outs going, hang on here, that's kind of outside the sandbox. I'm glad we're inside the sandbox. So thank you for the presentation. Brian, in terms of the motion that's in front of it, we already passed. Is there anything direction-wise you need council beyond that at this time?
If the motion that was presented at the beginning of the meeting was voted upon and approved?
Yeah, I did actually call for vote before we had the discussion, but we can actually go back through it again, reread it, and have council raise their hands, because it did go a little quick on that one. So I forget who moved it. Stacey, can you remind me who moved that one? Councillor. Okay, so moved by Councillor Ross and seconded by Councillor Leroux, that Main Street Reconstruction Streetscape Design Presentation from David Wood of Envision Tatham, that council receive the committee presentation for the Main Street Streetscape improvements for information and discussion, and that council receive the comments from senior management team and advisory committee member for information and discussion, and that proposed streetscape improvements outlined within the presentation be approved in principle and incorporated into the Main Street reconstruction design. Does any member of council wish to amend or adjust any of these terms and recommendations? Seeing no hands going up, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Questions, periods from the media and public? Ian, it was brilliant. You should have watched this, but you can watch this on live stream and replay the YouTube version. You're going to miss happy days. Alrighty, so let's. Oh, from the public. Yes, we had public. Betty, sorry, my apologies. We do have public.
There's two things I wanted to say. One, I would love to see this exact thing happen in front of Phil's and down that way. It's not about them, it's just the option to allow those businesses to have that same thing that's happening there at the top of the hill. And it's flatter down there, but I think that it's something to consider, and I think it would be a fair thing to consider. And the other thing I wanted to mention is a lot of our garbage cans, for instance, have the same lines as the new garbage cans, in that they're, they could just be painted to match that new gray color that they've introduced. And the same with our benches. We have a lot of little benches, but it's black. And if they could just paint them, that would probably save some money along the way. Or maybe, we could distribute them in other places. But I think all of those things that we have today, that we could use again if we choose to go with that. So.
Thank you for your comments. We take note of those. I see Councilor LaRue taking a couple of notes, so we've got those down, Betty. Thank you very much. And I'll look for a mover and seconder to adjourn. Councilor Rawson, Councilor Miat, all in favor? And we adjourned at 7:04, and then we're into council. So thank you very much, David. Thank you, Brian.
Thanks, David.
So I'll call the meeting to council to order. It's
We're good to go.
okay. Sure. Thank you very much, Stacey. I'll take a second then.
Yeah, I like to give you and you.
Yeah, we do have 3 other chairs up front here, ladies, if you want to wander up front. Or not. Alrighty, welcome everybody. We're just calling the meeting to order, so thanks for coming out. We got a full house here tonight, so certainly appreciate you taking time to spend with us. I'm looking at my agenda here, so, oh yes, council commitment, so if council can join me in the council commitment, please. We are grateful for the many gifts which have been bestowed upon Penetanguishene and its citizens, including the gifts of freedom, opportunity, and peace that we enjoy. May we be worthy custodians of all that has been entrusted to us. We ask that all in attendance and those who cannot be here to assist us in promoting good government. May our decisions as members of council be enlightened, and may we all be strengthened in our awareness of our duties and our responsibilities. May we be granted the wisdom, knowledge, will, and understanding to preserve the good fortune of the town for the benefit of all and to make good laws and wise decisions. Thank you all for attending. Moving on to item number 3, approval of the agenda, and it's moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Rawson, that the agenda of the regular council meeting of October 12th, 2016 be approved as presented. And I did want council to add in item 7.9 and 7.91. As I understand, Councillor Rawson has a notice of motion, and that's where they should be inserted. So if we could, with council's indulgence, add those 2 items as we move along. Any comments or questions on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to delegations and deputations, and we have 4 tonight, all regarding our Main Street reconstruction project. And the first up is our delegation, is Matt Staffen. So Matt, welcome and thank you for coming.
Okay, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I'll try not to be too long so that we can get home and watch the Leafs. So yeah, I want to thank the tenants, first of all, for coming out tonight. We have a lot of great support here tonight. And I just want to talk about community and really about where everything has gone since these first conversations started a couple years ago. When we do business, our family, it's all about community. And we really believe in community, because without a community, our businesses don't exist, we don't exist. And we're really, what we're doing is looking to work together on this. I think when we first, or I know when we first started to do this, we felt like there was a strong partnership, and we feel like whenever we go into these types of relationships, there always has to be a partnership. And we feel like this conversation has gone a bit the other way. Unfortunately, we do not feel the support on the other side, and we would like to work together, I think, is one of the biggest reasons we're here tonight. And not work as enemies, but come to a resolution that makes sense, really, for the community. We are looking to operate businesses in towns where we feel that you're open for business, and I think the Main Street trial, when we first saw that, and just the whole Main Street project looked enticing, it looked amazing, and we were very excited about it, and that's why we came forward with the idea of the Edward Street extension. Since then, we feel like it's maybe got sidetracked, or we're not really sure where it got off guard. However, we're in this situation, and obviously there's another number of people here who would like to see a different recommendation come forward. We don't want it to be black and white. We want it to be more of a conversation, and we can figure out what the best resolution is together. We feel that changing the mid-block main entrance, and I shouldn't say we feel, it has been identified in the traffic report, and David will speak about that later from the Tatham team, but basically that report said that it will not provide a benefit. However, it seems like the conversations have gone a different way. We know that, or we understand as business owners, and Sobeys obviously has a big support here, and some of our other tenants, they understand what that could do for their business and the risk associated with that. And I think if there's no benefit to something and yet we still make a change, it could cause a detrimental effect. And it's a risk. Are we willing to take that risk as a community, as partners? Are we willing to do that together? As Councillor Rawson said, and we saw in the newspaper article, which was a great point, if we lose $1, isn't that worth not changing the mid-block entrance? And obviously it's been identified there is no true benefit. So I'd like to close and say thank you again. We want to continue to work with our partners, and we feel like you guys are partners, and want to work together on other projects as well into the future. So we want this to be a conversation, not as we don't want to be enemies with one another, and go from there. So thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Any questions for Matt in his presentation? Comments? I don't see any hands running up, Matt, so I think you're safe. Thank you for those comments. Our next speaker is David Argue of Burnside, of RJ Burnside. So, David, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. Thank you for this opportunity. I was here at last Council meeting, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to provide some clarification, some additional information for your consideration. There were a number of points raised that I would agree to. I'd agree that the signalized driveway to Main Street, opposite Edward Street, will improve access for the mall. I agree with the town's consultant that given future road growth along the Main Street, you will need a 4-lane cross-section through that section of roadway. Left turns in the mall with the signalized driveway will be from the mall will be easier to make with a traffic signal there. Currently today, there are about 30 left turns making the movement from the full movement driveway onto Main Street to go north, which is about one every couple of minutes. And that's during a weekday PM peak hour. With the traffic signal, they've got the choice of going to the new traffic signal. So I would agree that it would be easier to make a left turn out of the mall. Where I differ a little bit is the left turns into the mall. And there's a couple of reasons behind this. If I look at the traffic volumes out there today, it's currently making the left turn into the mall from the southbound direction at the full movement on driveway is about 180 vehicles. Now, typically a traffic signal, you're going to run anywhere from an 80, 90, up to 120-second cycle. For my math's sake, I'm going to use a 120-second cycle because it's much easier for the math in my head. That works out to a traffic signal cycle changing every 2 minutes. Okay, so on 180 vehicles, that works out to about 6 vehicles per cycle. Now, whenever I look at that, you can provide an advance, but chances of getting all those 6 vehicles through on advance, given the mixture of traffic volumes, is slim. You will get some there at the end of the advance cycle. Now, I want you to compare this to the intersection up at Points and along this corridor. This location opposite Edwards will have a through right lane in both directions and a shared through left turn lane in both directions. So there is no separate left turn lane. So if you get a left vehicle stopped, you could have through traffic behind it, okay? And that's in both directions. There's a key difference in the Edwards location compared to the Points location. Points location is a T intersection. So if you have a left turn waiting to go and make a left turn onto Points, you've got traffic coming in the southbound direction, but that traffic is free flow. So essentially, as they go through the intersection, they're moving through. So once that clears, the left turns can proceed. There's a key difference now with the Edwards intersection in that in the southbound direction, there is about 60 lefts per cycle. So, or 60 lefts per hour. That works about 2 vehicles per cycle. So chances are you may have someone sitting opposite a left turn in the northbound direction and a left turn in the southbound direction. Okay? They're going to be offset. They're not like in a left turn lane where they're lined opposite each other. You will have vehicles jockeying around them. Both those have to wait until either the northbound queues have cleared or vehicles have cleared or southbound vehicles have cleared to make their movement. This is a little bit different than the existing full movement driveway where it's more similar to Points, where you stop to make your left turn and you wait for the southbound traffic to clear. As soon as you've got a gap in that southbound traffic, you can make your turn. But there's not a traffic signal stopping that traffic flow. So you're waiting for the gap to turn. Now, when I look at the operational analysis, existing would say there's about 45 meters of queuing in the northbound direction at the full movement driveway. If you restrict turns down there, that left turn queue goes to over 70 meters down at the Edwards Street driveway in the northbound direction. So you're going to see longer queues. Providing the full movement driveway will help reduce those queues and reduce the queues you currently see at the existing full movement driveway. It provides you opportunity to choose where you want to make the turn. It provides convenience for the mall access and also provides convenience for traffic to get off of Main Street. Now, we also conducted a safety review and looked at collisions along there, and there were no collisions or pattern of collisions identified at that full movement driveway where I would say, yeah, no, I agree, that driveway has to be restricted or even closed. There wasn't a collision pattern at that driveway that would support changes there. Now, the other thing is buses currently come in through the site. They could come in through the full movement driveway, but on site, there are, between the full movement driveway and the south end of the mall, you have parking spaces backing out onto that main aisle that traffic would now be using at a fuller extent. I've personally never liked traffic stalls backing out onto a main driveway. It's just more awkward and inconvenient, creates more conflicts. maintaining that full movement driveway allows for better dispersion within, and it helps alleviate some of that traffic that would be pushed out there. I also understand the town circulated the traffic study to C.C. Tatum for a review of it, and C.C. Tatum concurred with our findings. So from our recommendation, maintaining the full movement driveway was not a detrimental effect on the operations of Main Street. In fact, there are benefits to maintaining that full movement driveway. So I would propose the recommendation to you is that the main driveway be permitted to remain as full movements, and the implementation of a driveway opposite the traffic signal at Edwards could be proposed. And thank you if you have any questions.
Any questions for David on his comments? See none. David, thank you so much for coming. Our next speaker is from Megadollar. Wegas Ahmed, am I saying that right? Wegas? Good evening, welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me to speak on this matter. When I was thinking about this entire project, one of the things that kept coming to my mind is the future and the growth of the town, because this is something that we're all interested in as business owners, as the council and the mayor, because we are in service to the town. And as David has said, that we want to provide choice and convenience. So in that term, I think I agree that entrance should remain, and that we should have another entrance with the satellites. And what that would do is that would give people the choice of whatever is convenience for them to turn into. And one of the things that I've noticed in running my business and being part of other organizations is that a lot of times we make decisions that are short-sighted, and we do not see the detrimental effect that they will have long-term, and all the people that are going to be touched and affected by that decision. And when I speak on behalf of the business owners, because if we go with the choice that we make the mall pay for that first entrance, I feel that the mall doesn't really exist. It's an entity which is built up of individual business owners. And the business owner, we are the ones that make the mall. So when the payment for that Main Street construction comes, it actually falls down on us. And speaking personally, I've built this business in a way that it serves the community of Penetanguishene, and I've done everything I can to be a part of this community, and we have customers who depend on our business. And if the cost of that second entrance was to fall up on the tenants, that would basically put me out of business, and I feel like it would also hurt some of the other businesses. And I also feel that as the mall owners and the business and the council, we should work together to come up with a solution that promotes growth and promotes choice and accessibility, not only for us, but for everybody who lives in the community, and while reshaping the main street and the front entrance to our house, which is our town, we should also be thinking about how is this going to affect the community, our children, and the people, the children when they grow up. Because, it's one thing to, have the businesses pay for it, and maybe some of them will survive, some of them will not. But if the mall owners want to go in their own direction, and the township wants to go in their own direction and we do not cooperate, I feel the mall, which is an anchor to our town, will slowly die away. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to take bricks off of one wall and put them on another wall. So I propose the council to sort of rethink this, and considering the traffic studies and considering that the mall owners are willing to work together to come up with a solution which promotes the growth of our town. And keep in mind that these small decisions that we make a year later or 10 years later will have different type of effects. So if we see a hospital closing today, and then a school closing tomorrow, and then a mall closing the other day, these things do not just happen over the day. And we cannot point fingers at a particular person, because it's the cumulative effort and the cumulative choices that we all make together that decide the future of tomorrow for us. So that is my opinion.
Thank you. I should take some comfort. Council's made no determinations to share the costs with the mall. We have not made that decision. We haven't seen the cost yet, so we've not anywhere near that decision point at all. So I appreciate your comments about how if we chose to do that, it could have negative impacts. I certainly appreciate that, but you need to take some comfort that we have not made that decision at all. That has not been determined by our council. But I do appreciate your counsel. Any other comments for Megas? No, seeing none, thank you very much for coming out, spending time with us.
Thank you.
So Chris Cherry from Foodland. Chris is next. Welcome, Chris.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to first introduce myself for those of you that don't know me. I'm the new franchisee at Penetang Foodland. I've been with Foodland for 15 years as a franchisee, so I started off in Barrie, Coboconk, and now I'm in Penetang, and hopefully this is my last stop. I first want to talk about change. I'm a big believer in change. Every day I see new innovation in my business, and I think to survive it, I think the town needs to change. I think businesses need to change, but I think the changes need to be positive decisions that have positive results. I think the current proposal for the entrance at Edward is a positive change. I think it creates convenience for the south end of the mall, all right, and it may alleviate a little bit of the pressure of the traffic further on down. But I also see that the taking away and moving to a right-in, right-out at the main entrance, current main entrance, I see that as a negative effect on convenience. So I want to talk about my personal use of the parking lot and kind of show that convenience. Currently, I used to park, and I still do park at the back parking lot by Point Street. And I used to drive to Point Street and take a left, and I'd take the first left, and I stopped doing that, just sheerly out of convenience. I now use the main entrance. I turn left, follow in front of my store, and then park at the back of the back by Point Street. And I do that because I was getting caught at the traffic lights at Points. I was getting caught behind people entering the Tim Hortons, and it actually took me longer. And I'm sure you guys are no different going to work. You've probably found the quickest way to get to your parking spot. It's the exact same reason why. So that shows a little bit of that convenience. I have two scenarios of people shopping I'd like to take into consideration. The first person is a person that comes to town and wants to shop at the north end of the mall where I am, okay, or even the main part of the mall where people go to the pharmacy and whatever, okay? So they decide not to take the first entrance that is proposed for Edward Street, only because most people like to get to where they're going. They don't want to drive across an entire mall, okay? They want to get to the closest intersection or entrance that they can get to where they want to shop. Excuse me. In doing that, now they can't make that left into the main entrance, and now they head to Point Street. Okay, in Point Street, it is possible that in a busy Friday night in the summer and so on, that you may not make the first left signal light going on Point Street. You may be backed up for a couple. And in that moment, people could actually think to themselves, man, it's too busy. Maybe I'll do my shopping tomorrow. But the fact is, tomorrow, maybe they're visiting a friend in Midland, or they're going to a movie in Midland, and maybe they end up doing their shopping in Midland. Okay, and we've taken dollars away from this town that this town needs. Okay? My second proposal, and I think it's even more important to think of, we're always thinking about our mall, but I think we only survive if the whole town survives. The main street needs to survive, the mall needs to survive to help all of our businesses. So The other scenario is you get a summer shopper, and I'm just using them because they don't know the roadways like our locals as well, okay? So you get somebody in town, and they use their parking lot to go walk the main street, and it's well known, and I think everybody can agree that they do use our parking lot. They walk the main street, they window shop, they go to our downtown, and so on. They come back to their car. Maybe they get something at the mall. Maybe they decide it's lunchtime or dinner time, and they go to leave the mall, and that's where the issue becomes. They can only turn right. So for those people that thought, maybe I'll get a quick lunch or dinner downtown Penetang, they now go to leave the mall, and they leave that entrance, and now they're heading towards Midland. I know the conversation in the car with my wife would be, well, let's just get something quick in Midland. I'm not pulling a U-turn, right? So we've lost another dollar that's possibly spent in our downtown and our community. And I think it's very important that we don't do that. Lastly, in conclusion, the next couple of years will be very tough on businesses while this development and construction is going on. We can all agree on that, okay? And some businesses may not survive. But I don't think we should make decisions that might prolong the impact, a negative impact on our businesses by closing and shutting down the convenience of shoppers. And I think that's about all I really have to say.
Thank you very much, Chris. Any questions for Chris? See none? Thank you very much for your time. Council, I jumped ahead of us here. We do have to go back to 3A, and I know Elizabeth with Rogers always loves when I jump ahead, so she has to redo the tape behind the scenes, but we do have to address tonight's agenda. So it's moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Rawson, that the agenda of the regular council meeting of October 12, 2016 be approved as presented. And all in favor of that? And that is carried. Moving on to agenda item 6A. It's moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Rawson, that the following minutes of the council meetings be confirmed and adopted as circulated. Special council minutes dated September 28, 2016. Council minutes dated September 28, 2016. Committee of the Whole report dated September 28, 2016. Any comments, errors, or omissions noted on those minutes? And seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Those minutes are adopted. Moving on to the item that we included. So we have 7.9 as notices of motions previously submitted. We have none. 7.91 notices of motion to be presented tonight. And I think Councillor Rawson, you have a notice of motion that you'd like to present.
Thank you, Worship. I do. It's moved by myself and second by Councillor LaRue that Council directs staff to include in the 2017 budget planning a costing and any potential risks and feasibility in maintaining the Rotary Trail from Main Street to Robert Street to allow residents and visitors to continue to walk on the trail in the winter in a safe manner. That'll come forward next meeting.
We do have an option here, Councillor Rawson, so we do have an option if two-thirds of council agrees, we could actually, because I understand timing's a bit of an issue here, so if two-thirds of the council agrees to review this matter tonight, we can actually discuss it tonight if you should so desire.
I would personally rather wait to next meeting. I've been approached by a member that's organizing the petition, and they want to present that petition at the next meeting, so I'd like to wrap it together at the next meeting.
Okay, no, we're fine with that. Councillor LaRue, you're okay with that?
Yes, Your Worship, I'm fine with it.
Okay, so we'll just receive that and we'll talk about it in 2 weeks' time. So thank you very much for that. Moving on to presentations, number 8, presentations, consideration of reports from Committee of the Whole. And which committee is the Main Street under, Stacey? Teeny, so I'll move that one first because people are here to listen to that one, so let me find that. Here it is, I got it moved by Councillor Rawson, seconded by myself, that recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole Report 2016-15, September 28, 2016, related to the Transportation and Environmental Services section, be approved. Does any member of council wish to pull any items? Councillor Rawson.
Yes, Your Worship. Last time we spoke about the mid-block, I spoke about it in some detail. I'd like to pull it again tonight for further dialogue.
Okay, we can do that. Any other items to be pulled? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. The floor is yours, Councillor Rawson.
Thank you, Worship. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I think we haven't had this good a turnout since probably the Health Hub. So I'm going to repeat a lot of what I said last time. I'm going to hold on. I think we're making an emotional decision. I think we're all holding on to this right in, right out analogy. I know I was. But when we look at the facts and the matter, I don't know why I was holding on to right in, right out. I think we just all felt that was the right thing to do. I have still not talked to any community member that believes we should not do right in, right out. Everyone I've talked to believes right in, right out is the right thing. But when I do tell them, if that means that a business will close and you have to go to Midland to get your service or goods, everyone gives a second thought and said, no, that's not more important to me. So I think we need to think about that. Many times businesses have come here asking for council support. Patios came up, and we did some dialogue about patios, and we did what was the right thing that the businesses were asking for. Businesses have asked for our support with signs. We did what was the right thing at that time. We've had quite a discussion about transit, and we had not this great a turnout when transit came about. I didn't get a lot of public support looking for it, but we did what we thought was the right thing for the community. A lot of people use our mall. There's a lot of great services there. It employs a lot of people, provides a lot of goods and services. I think, like I said last time, one more dollar spent in our town is not a bad thing. Mountain View Mall, we all see, is going through a phenomenal facelift, I guess we call it. Why do we want to encourage our local dollars going there? Let's keep our local dollars here. Businesses are here tonight. They're telling us, just let us keep what we've got today. They're not asking for gold-plated entrance. They said, can we have what we got today? So I don't know why we're trying to jeopardize their business. So I think we need to do the right thing for us. If we don't tonight, it's shame on us. Let's just do the right thing. With that being said, I think you all know how I feel. So I'm going to move an amendment to last week's motion, and I'm going to move that we move forward with option 3. With a slight amendment to that, I'm going to move that construction of the Edward Street signalized entrance into the Village Square Mall property with the mid-block entrance status quo and the costs associated with the Edward Street signalized entrance being negotiated between the town and mall ownership, which is what we had a lot of dialogue on last time. So I'm going to move that forward. Mayor Marshall.
Seconder for that motion, Deputy Mayor. Comments on the motion in front of us, Councillor Levy?
Yeah, thank you very much. I want to thank Councillor Rawson for sticking to his guns on this. I don't necessarily agree, but I will support it because it's important to these people. I've run a business in this town for 25 years. I know what a tough job it is, and I do business with all of you sitting here tonight. And if you feel this strongly about it, this is your bread and butter. This is not my bread and butter. So I really have no justification for not changing my mind. Like I said, I'm not convinced it's the right thing, but you folks are. And not only that, but you put your money into studies and planners, et cetera, and lawyers. And so I'm just going to have to go with them on this, for better or for worse. And it will help slow traffic down getting into town a little bit. And that was one of our goals of, we don't want to have a racetrack out there on the main street. So I'm just going to go along with it because that's what these folks want. There's a lot of tax dollars sitting here. There's a lot of employment sitting here, and I have to trust them.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. I too, after much thought, I have reconsidered my position, and I support leaving the left in. I feel it is more important to have mall owners on site and have them engaged in a partnership with us. I would hope that there will be some consideration given to the costing of this singleized intersection at Edward and Main. I think you talked about a strong partnership earlier, and I think that's quite a possibility. So I don't change my mind very often. Usually when you make a decision, you make it on sound information that's before you, but a lot of different things have come forward, and certainly I agree with comments made by Councillor Levy. There's a lot of people in this room that are very in business in our community, and we want to keep you here. I shop in your stores as well, and if you feel strongly about this particular issue, then I'm going on side. The left into the mall may very well correct itself over time with this singleized intersection. I think that's probably the most important thing that we need to do. So anyway, I will be voting along with Councillor Rawson to support his motion.
Councillor Leroux?
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, at the last meeting that we had in regards to the right in, right out. It was the option that was given. The thing with me at that time was that there was no option 4. And to me, the option 4 would have been to retain the right in, right out, and the left in, do away with the left out. I have a bit of an issue and a problem with the left out. I'd have no issue with the left in whatsoever. I don't think it's going to be a great big hindrance, but if it's a choice and the majority of councils wish to stay status quo, I will have no issue with that either, except I have to say I would like to see the left out done away with, because I monitored it as well, and I know for a fact that many people using the mall parking, the great majority of them exit on Point Street. The lights at Edward Street will enable them to also exit left. I, for example, today was at the Bank of Nova Scotia, saw a half-ton truck wanting to turn left. It took him quite some time to get out, and the other part of it was that there was a car that wanted to go right. The truck kept inching forward over the sidewalk, impedes pedestrian traffic, and at the same time block the views of the person that wanted to go right. So other than that, I have no problems with the left in and the right out and the whatever. It's just the left out that is a bit of an issue with me, but if it's the majority of councils wish to go status quo, then so be it. I will go along.
Councillor Lauder.
Thank you, Your Worship. I got to admit that last week, the right in, right out was very appealing. However, I will say, and I did say to Councillor Rawson during the week that when he spoke, I did give a lot of credibility to his thought. I will say that, because I had discussions with our Director of Public Works earlier, and there is a lot of support to the Burnside study, but I don't believe in it. I believe the current counts, and I'd love to see future counts to really compare and see what the truth is, but I have a tough time. The counts were so close. I have a tough time really feeling that there's that much of a difference. But anyways, the most important thing was, Chris, thank you very much, Roya. Thank you for your conversation tonight. I did identify with a couple of those situations, and I did agree with them. You know, I'm also of the opinion that people will, you know, they want to shop here, they will stop and shop here, but if it makes it a little easier and whatnot, as Councillor Rawson has said, I do agree with that. So to me, the most important thing, thank you, Councillor Levy, for emphasizing that, but the most important thing was seeing the multitude of businesses. There are some that I asked specifically during the week, during some telephone calls, you know, are they interested? You know, because before we were only talking about 38% of the mall with Foodland, and I appreciate that, but I wanted to see all the mall, and I've seen it. So I respect, I understand, and I see the dedication. So I also will fully support option 3.
Councillor Marriott.
Thank you, Your Worship. Basically, I'm aboard with Councillor LaRue. Like the left out, I'm not in favor at all. I was attendant in that mall for 17 years. Yes, I've used that entrance before, and any of the old mall members that were there, we used to call that suicide lane, because you had to wait for the traffic. The light was red over here, the traffic light was green over here. Didn't matter, you had to cut. If you got an SUV like me, and I've seen it too often, I'm high, you got a little car, he's low. So he creeps up, he's on the sidewalk, creeps up, traffic's coming, he can't see anything. That's why, like, I don't use that entrance anymore. I go off of Point Street. I'd prefer to see the left out ban. Left in, I got no problems with it. But I mean, most people will take the light coming in anyways. But if the council is in favor of keeping it as it is, I'll vote in favor, but I still say the left out should be banned from there.
Well, it's supposed to, Councillor LaRue, because I can see where you're headed here. I mean, I disagree with this, by the way. I think it's the intersection's the way to go. But having said that, you know, the will of council is the will of council. Tim Hortons does thousands per day, right out only. The liquor store, hundreds per day, right in, right out. Pharmasave, Home Hardware, back of the mall, no interest at all, right? So, and we're not sharing the cost with the mall owner, so I'm not sure how large this crowd would be if they thought that they weren't bearing any of this cost. So I have some challenges there. And then you look at the safety stats that you brought out. Traffic stats say unsignalized left turns, huge problem, major issues in terms of fatalities and a few other things. So there's a lot in play here that I think could benefit our citizens. Somebody mentioned our children. This is about our sidewalks, about walkability, about active transportation. It's about changing the environment, changing their demographic. But having said that, you know, if we have to concede ground, is there an appetite? Maybe Councillor LaRue and Mayat, you might want to put a motion in front of council in terms of an option 4 left out, and I leave that to you two gentlemen to decide if you want to put that in front of council to amend that motion. So I'll leave it to you. Councillor Lauder.
Thank you, Your Worship. As I understand it, if we make the intersection a full access intersection, I mean, it's still within council and the town's right to, in the future, to, I mean, we're really talking from the streetscaping standpoint, whatnot, no medium and whatnot. It's a full access. Everything's there. But I'm sure if we found that if the left turn out, which is the least of the activities, if it is causing a problem, then we could implement that left turn restriction in the future, I'm sure. And the other thing regarding Councilor LaRue's comment regarding the big truck turning in, I certainly feel that would be a very appropriate standpoint to make the left-in car only, not transport trucks. So is that just traffic regulations that we handle in the future? That's a question I'm putting out to yourself or Brian.
Councillor LaRue, please.
Your Worship, just a correction. I wasn't referring to a truck turning in left. I was referring to a truck turning out left.
Yes, I got that. All right, any other, so you want to leave the motion as is? You want to have a discussion on that option 4? I'll leave it to you two gentlemen. You bring up an option, now's the time to have the discussion.
Jerry?
Because the ship sails. Sorry.
I will move that we go with left in, right out, left out, or no left out, whatever.
Councillor Mayat?
I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion on left out only. Stacy? No, we can amend the original motion. No. No, we can amend that original motion from Councillor LaRue. We're fine in that category. So left out, restricted. Comments on left out, restricted. Councillor Rawson.
We're just doing games here right now. We're playing games. We're playing procedural games. We can talk about a left changes later. I think it's just bad on us. So I'll repeat what I said a little while ago. Shame on us. So I'm going to call for a recorded vote, and let's call the question.
Not until we have a comment on this amended. Any other comments on the left turn?
No, Your Worship, it's a case where we did have the option. I don't have a problem with the left-in whatsoever, and I think it's beneficial to the mall and beneficial to the town. I had no problems with the right-in and right-out. The left-out is a problem, and I stay with it.
So Stacey, recorded vote on the amended motion presented in front of council, with Councillor Rawson leading it off. Correct. So right now the motion is the intersection with full mid-block access, right in, right out, left in, left out. The amendment is left. Sure. Thank you. Sorry, we're just waiting for that. No, the motions, it's been called for a recorded vote, so.
Sorry, before you go into the vote, I'm just trying to make sure I understand. That's what I'm trying to figure out here. Like, I'm going to stick with what we've decided. But Councillor Rawson is going with option 3. Am I correct, Councillor Rawson? He's voting for option 3. I mean, how do you put an option 4 on top of option? Shouldn't we be voting on option 3 first?
You're amending option 3 to restrict the left out. So I called it an option 4. Reality is what we're doing here is we have a motion in front of us, and you're amending that motion, option 3, as Councillor Rawson called it, with full in-out, left and right access mid-block, and his amendment is to restrict left out in front of council. So it's still his option, just amended with a slight, my
Thank you.
apologies for calling it an option 4. I was just stealing Councillor LaRue's language.
Your Honor. Your Worship, just so that I understand, if whatever happens with this, if it is not, if it is defeated, we go back to...
Back to the original motion,
Sorry. the
unamended. Yep. Original motion by Councillor Roshan, unamended.
So just to clarify the motion that's being asked for recorded vote, would be that this report be received with information and discussion, and that council direct staff to proceed with construction of the Edward Street signalized entrance into Village Square Mall property with the mid-block entrance to include restricting left out from the mall and the costs associated with the Edward Street signalized entrance will be negotiated between the town and mall ownership.
One more time, Stacy, please. The whole thing, thanks. You lost me at the start. Yeah, that'd be better. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So the motion on the floor being requested for a recorded vote, that this report be received for information and discussion, and that council directs staff to proceed with the construction of the Edward Street signalized entrance into the Village Square Mall property with the mid-block entrance to include restricting left out from the mall, and that costs associated with the Edward Street signalized entrance be negotiated between the town and mall ownership.
Thank you. Recorded vote on that, Stacy, please.
And sorry, just missed who called for the recorded vote.
Councillor
Councillor
Rawson.
Rawson. Thank you. Councillor Rawson.
Opposed.
Councillor Miette.
For it.
Councillor LaRue.
In favor.
Councillor Levy.
Opposed?
Councillor Lauder.
Opposed.
Deputy Mayor Dubois.
Opposed.
Mayor Marshall.
In favor.
That motion is defeated, 4-3.
So now we're back to the main motion. Comments on the main motion? I do have one. I've never understood why we want to share the cost with the mall, as I said last week. So I'd like to propose an amendment that we bear the cost of that. As I said last week, I never understood us putting in an intersection to the benefit of creating traffic flow north and south. And I take the point that we've got the mid-block in play here now, but I never understood why we were going down that path when the overall plan of building the street for the next 4 decades was for the benefit of one and all, including those who walk, those who bike, those who drive, those who are in business, those who are visiting us, those who are tourists, so on and so forth. So I've struggled with that from day one, so I'd look for a seconder that we actually don't charge them all any cost in this particular matter, especially related to that intersection. For clarity, it was never in front of council to charge them all for the right-in, right-out option in the middle of that. That was never in play. It was only ever the costs were always in play at the intersection. So I look for a seconder that we actually waive those costs. Okay. Seconder for that, Councillor LaRue. Comments on waiving those costs? Councillor Rawson.
I'm not opposed to this. There was lots of discussion last time, and the only way I felt we could get this approved tonight is put in language here saying let's have negotiation and have conversation. So I would welcome this, but I don't think there's an opposition. Just there's several people sitting around the table who aren't here tonight that wanted discussion more on this item. So that's why I put it there, to make this happen tonight.
Thank you for those comments. Councillor Lauder?
I'm actually, I like the negotiation standpoint. I also like to know what the costs are going to be. I mean, we've talked forever about trying to keep down and maintain status quo and whatnot, keep our costs in line. And we're doing significant, that's what I've said a couple of times, what I believe we only own about 6 to 10 feet, whatever. So depending on the size of the intersection and what style of entrance is it going to be suiting both the front and the back of the mall, in which case it could be as much as 400, I guess not 400 feet, but 300 feet in length and maybe significant costs. So I'd like to see what the plan for an entrance, not the intersection. The intersection is the town's responsibility, but the actual entrance into the mall, I'd like to see it scoped and priced and then negotiated with the mall, because I think, it is something that's going to increase the value of the mall, and I think that they should be bearing some of the costs of it.
Councillor Mayat?
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I agree with Councillor Lauder. Like, what are we talking expense? Are we talking, yes, it's our responsibility to put the light on that side, do the sidewalk, do into the entrance of the mall, but are we talking all the way down, for example, to the LCBO? We do that part on the town's responsibility? I don't think so. I'd like to see negotiate something with the owners, because yes, it's definitely going to be at their benefit. If it's only like 10 feet past the sidewalk, 20 feet, then I've got no problems with it. The town, we can pay for it. But to extend it all the way down to where the break wall is, or where the little white house is, as we call it, that I'm not quite in favor for that. I would like to see what the cost would be first of all.
Councillor Levy?
Thank you very much. I agree. I think that issue can wait. I have my opinion on it, but it's an ill-informed opinion at this point without a pricing. And I think we've done some heavy lifting here tonight, and to finalize the entrances for tonight and exits is enough heavy lifting for one night, and we can revisit this when we have the information. Thank you.
Yeah, remind council, we've got $3.4 million in funding for the Main Street reconstruction, so we have some capability and financial bandwidth to do some smart things to move forward, opportunities that don't have to impact taxation or indoor business owners. But any other final comments on that?
Thank you, Your Worship. I totally understand that, but at the same time, it's a matter of, do we put the basic entrance in, or do we want a glorified entrance? For example, Mr. Saffin may want to put something that is really elegant going into his mall. He may want to fit the front of his mall nicely, may want to fit the back of his mall nicely. It may be a double entrance, or, with a nice median in the center sort of thing, so the cars really have a nice, a perfect environment. So there's so much to be considered. I think for sure the town should make the signalized entrance in the first 10 feet and whatnot. That's our responsibility. But from there, let's make something that's going to be glorified and make something that's going to be fitting to the town. And then at that point, let's talk about, based on the beauty, let's see who's going to share and how we're going to share.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just like to remind members of council that when we have a subdivision that comes into our community, we put a lot of restrictions, and we expect some shared costs in building roads and intersections. So I certainly would like the opportunity for some partnership and negotiation. So.
Alrighty, I guess my final comment on is this is self-imposed by the town onto the mall, and all these people's in here, I tell you, with the exception of maybe Mr. Cherry, who really has a vested interest in that right in, right out, or left in, left out to Foodland. The main reason people are filling this room is because of the cost sharing over the CAM cost within contracts with the mall that might be spread across that mall entrance. So, so I look at that mall going, this is a council kind of vision for that intersection, imposing that upon the mall and imposing those costs upon the mall. I'm intuitively against, but I'm going to go down in flames, so I'll just call for the vote and I'll go down in flames on this one. The motion to amend, please, Stacey.
This is that the report be received for information and discussion, and that council directs staff to proceed with the construction of the Edward Street signalized entrance into the Village Square Mall property with the mid-locked entrance status quo, and the costs associated with the Edward Street signalized entrance be borne by the town.
Correct.
Sorry.
No worries. I'll go. This is my amendment, yeah. So, All in favor? And opposed? All righty, so back to the main motion as amended. Stacy, if you could read that one more time.
This is the motion from Councillor Rawson,
See.
moved by Councillor LaRue, or seconded by Councillor LaRue, I believe, at the beginning, or Deputy Mayor, sorry. That the council report be received for information and discussion, and that the council directs staff to proceed with construction of the Edward Street signalized entrance into the Village Square Mall property with the mid-block entrance status quo, and the costs associated with the Edward Street signalized entrance be negotiated between the town and mall ownership.
And Councillor Rawson, you want to record a vote on this? You don't want to get it there for austerity? All in favor? That is carried. All righty. Back to your, what'd you say, it was a hockey game tonight, so thanks for coming out, folks. Appreciate the input. As Councillor Rawson said, there's still, you can come every Wednesday, yeah. All righty, so we move on to 8A, moved by, where are we here? Finance Corporate Services, moved by Councillor Rawson, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, that recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole Report 2016-15 of September 28, 2016, related to the Finance and Corporate Services section be approved. Does any member of council wish to pull any of these items for further discussion? See none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? That is carried. Moved by Deputy Levy, seconded by Councillor Lauder. Deputy Levy? Councillor Levy, seconded by Councillor Lauder. The recommendations contained within the Committee of the Whole Report 2016-15, September 28, 2016, related to the Planning and Development Services section be approved. Does any member of council wish to pull any of these items for further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Move on to item 8A, RCS, moved by Councillor LaRue, seconded by Councillor Mayotte, that the recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole Report 2016-15 of September 28, 2016, related to Recreation and Community Service section be approved. Does any member of council wish to pull any of these items? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And that is carried. We're on to item number 9, moved by Councillor Rawson, seconded by myself, that the Public Transit Infrastructure Fund application for the installation of a new sidewalk from La Couronne Street to Dufferin Street on the north side of Robert Street East, and the extension of the sidewalk on Dufferin Street to Brule Street, I can't even speak, Brule Street be approved, and the staff proceed with the application process. Councillor Rawson, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. I'm going to actually defer this to Brian, if you can speak to this.
Brian, please.
Just,
sorry, Councillor Mayotte?
sorry, did we jump over finance?
No, we did that. Councillor Rawson moved it. Probably would confuse you. We're good, yeah. It was moved by Councillor Rawson, seconded by the Deputy Mayor, so it might have been just the names that threw you a curve.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Ross, so I'll come back to that, Council. That's fine.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Rawson. The Public Transit Infrastructure Fund is a new transit infrastructure fund that's recently come out. It's for transit infrastructure projects. It'll be able to support bus purchases, infrastructure type project that related to transit. Seeing as we are a new municipality that has provided a transit service, we've recently purchased a bus for our transit service, so there was very little options in terms of which projects we could apply for. We looked at bus shelters. However, the base funding that we received, which is $50,000, we also had to in turn provide another $50,000 as a result of that, to total $100,000. And the bus shelters that we would install would not come up to that funding limit. So we looked at other options, and we came up to an eligible project, which was transit infrastructure, which is the installation of new sidewalks that would provide access to residential areas within our transit system route. And looking at our existing sidewalks, we're proposing the installation or extension of a sidewalk on Robert Street East to extend to Brule Street. This actually has a double effect to satisfying not only transit infrastructure, but also improving pedestrian accessibility in that area as well. I've received actually one request from a neighbor in this area to extend this sidewalk, so it's actually an added benefit of satisfying that request. It is a fairly well-traveled area. We do have schools in that area, and it would actually provide a connecting link in the future to the new sidewalk we put on Dufferin Street. So that's why we're recommending the application of that project.
Thank you very much for that, and I think, Councillor Mayotte, this was on your political bucket list, so do you want to say a few words? You've been working at this one for a while.
Thank you, Your Worship. Excuse me. Yeah, this is something that actually I've been pushing since the year 2000 from Dufferin all the way to St. Louis, and I'm definitely in favor for it. Not only for the kids going to school at St. Louis and also PSS, but we have a lot of people walking, and it'll be nice, you know, for the buses and all that, which I'm definitely in favor, and I hope it goes off the ground, so I'm getting part of it done anyways. Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call for vote. All in favor? And that is carried. Now just return back to Finance and Corporate Services. So what item would you like to pull out of that, Councillor Leroux?
Number 2, Your Worship.
Number 2. Okay, so Stacey will pull item number 2, and I'll just revisit that main motion again. So moved by Councillor Ross and seconded by the Deputy Mayor that the remaining recommendations contained within Committee of the Whole Report 2016-15 of September 28, 2016, related to the Finance and Corporate Services section be approved. And all in favor of that? And that is carried. So item number 2, Councillor Leroux, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Basically, Your Worship, it's more a concern statement than a discussion, and it's the fact that an article that appeared in Simcoe News, headline, Penetanguishene councillors concerned libraries spent funds despite uncertainty. And we take exception with the fact there are 2 councillors here who sit on the library board, and I think that we certainly would not be spending money that we know we didn't have, as Councillor LaRose had alluded to, that we were spending money that we didn't have. The budget that was approved in 2016, operation and capital budget, clearly shows to replace the main floor carpeting and security system upgrades passed and approved by council. And it's just that why this would have taken place or happened, it's just unbelievable. And the other part of it is that the town treasurer takes blame for failing to communicate. Article that's very deceiving to a lot of the board members. As a matter of fact, they were quite upset when they saw this, so I had to comment on it.
No, thank you very much for bringing that forward. Councillor Leroux, I think we need a motion from you just to receive that for information. Stacey?
I suspect the motion will pass as originally presented. I pulled that motion. It was for discussion. We can just pass it as it was presented in committee.
Okay, so just all in favor of passing that as presented in committee? That is carried. Thank you very much. Where are we here? Bopping all over the place. Bylaws, there we go. Somebody's hanging on to this bylaw. All right, who has it? Bylaw number 10A. All righty. It's all right, I'll just look for a live mover in a second, or Stacey, I can just read off the agenda. So, bylaws 2016-51 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with the ICLEI Local Governments for Sustainable Management, Inc. for the Great Lakes Adaptation Project for the period of July 1st, 2016 to June 30th, 2017, and that the bylaw 2016-51 be signed, sealed by the mayor and the clerk. Mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please. Councillor Ross and then Deputy Mayor. CEO Lees, who's best from staff to speak to this for us, please?
Probably the Director of Public Works, but I would just remind or identify for Council that this was actually brought through Committee of the Whole and approved by Council, I believe, on September 28th. So this is just a formality to bring the bylaw forward, but certainly if there are any specific questions, the Director of Public Works would be the best.
Yep, thank you very much. I do recall that conversation. Council, any other questions on this one? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. And all in favor, and that is carried. And I need a motion to move in camera. And it's moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Ross, and that in accordance with the Town of Penetanguishene Procedural Bylaw 2016-08, the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene move in camera session to discuss labor relations or employee negotiations. Any comments on this item? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, and we'll go. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Comment, we have people in the audience that are making a deputation where we've made them wait much longer than, I know it's committee of the whole, but is there any way we can?
We could have a motion, Stacy, to, I know County Council, I can actually recess council, convene committee of the whole, and then recess committee of the whole, come back to council. It's a wee bit of a logistical typing for the clerk, but I look for a mover and seconder to recess council. Okay, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Levy, all in favor of us recessing? Okay, so Stacy will recess council, and then I'll open up committee of the whole. That's really going to mess up Rogers, isn't it, Elizabeth? I tell you what, then, Elizabeth, we're going into in camera on county on council, so we'd just be rising with or without report. So we'll take a 3-minute break and let her change tapes. Yeah, sorry, Councillor, will it take short time, Jeff?
Yeah, through your worship, I don't anticipate the in-camera will be very long at all. I would suggest that perhaps we do that quick in-camera.
Last time we did that, folks, we had to buy lunch, but let's try it. Okay, we'll go in camera. And Elizabeth's much happier with that decision from Rogers. Okay, we'll go in camera back, and you guys can clock at 5 minutes.
Hi, how are you? I got your message. Yeah. So,
Ralph had already,
Yep.
gone through all the math, so I thought, well,
Yep.
I better just share with you, because I just spoken to you.
Oh, that's fine.
We talked about it, so I thought, okay, I'll call you back.
Yep.
Give
Oh,
you
that's fine.
what's in his mind.
Yep. Yep, that's fine.
Whenever it comes to that point, and we can
Absolutely.
talk about it further, then we'll do that.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
And you're on holidays soon, or?
Yeah, November 4th to the 12th.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Just
Okay.
so
Okay.
I just thought, the way things go, you'd call on
Yeah.
the 5th or something. and
No,
say,
I
"Let's meet," and then
no,
we'll
I
talk.
appreciate the call though. Thank you.
Yeah, just to give you a heads up.
Yep.
And hopefully the survey folks get there.
Yes. Yeah, I know they're.
Good time frame, or?
No, they said that that was a while ago. I called them. I said, "Well, can you give me an idea of the time frame?" He says, "Well, we'll put you in the queue, and it could be a month." So,
Just
I mean,
from our own experience, I would follow up to say, now where are we in the queue?
Yeah.
Now where are we?
Yeah,
in the
no,
queue?
I,
Just the,
no, I hear ya.
schedule and all that stuff.
I hear ya, yep.
We've been there before. and it's
Yep.
like, wait.
same here.
But, yes,
Yep.
I'm sure it's not your first time.
Yeah.
either, so.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So they should be if they're on schedule sometime this month. So
Excellent.
hopefully that would be good. But while this weather's still good.
The streets and
Yeah,
everything else.
that's right.
Thank you, you'll be there,
Yeah.
for sure. Video issue? Yeah. Oh, good. I got it.
Just I have to pull that one down and pull that up.
Yeah.
No way.
So it's set in your remote, it's gonna work?
I tested that. Roy.
Oh, I know this one by heart. That's my fourth class.
Oh, beautiful. Look at this thing.
Point it anywhere, it's far away. Yeah.
Can I turn the off? Which one's the first one?
But here,
How come it doesn't move?
here, Rudy,
Is that the first slide?
no,
There you go.
there you go.
Is that the first slide?
Yep.
Okay.
Up and down? Or is it
Sideways.
Oh, okay.
To try to get a feeling. Yeah? Isn't that funny, eh? Oh, there it goes. It's just how you hit it, very sensitive. So like me. Extremely sensitive. Is this your stuff here? Sure. I need a pen. Hey, you're funny, I got one. I need longer nails.
Yeah, you need some nails.
Yeah. I'll work on it.
Yeah, I'm using my nail, you're right.
I'll work on it. I'll work on it. Second, transportation.
Oh,
That's right.
In the midsection, in the existing, so the new, where Edward Street was all lanes, but then this one was only right in, right up to the mid-block. So. Yeah. I go through.
Presentation making.
If this doesn't work, I hit,
Alrighty, so it's moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councilor Ronson, that the Council of the Town of Penetanguishene rise from in-camera session with a report, and that their CEO proceed as directed. Final comments? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor? And that is carried. All right, over to question periods from the media and public. We still got some standing here, so that's pretty good. Ian, any questions? Later? Okay, catch us. Elizabeth, you good? That's intimidating. Ian said he had a lot. All right, so it's moved by Councilor Ross and seconded by Councilor Dubo. Sorry, I passed announcements and inquiries. Does any member of council have announcements? Councilor LaRue, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just reminding everyone, our grand opening on the 21st for the amphitheater, starting at 6 o'clock.
Be a fun night. Deputy Mayor.
Yes, I had an inquiry to our Brian. Brian, we had a conversation just a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, about sidewalks, and there was some discussion about a couple of sidewalks that would be repaired on Edward Street. And is that still in the works and something that we're trying to make happen before winter?
Yes, through your worship to the Deputy Mayor. Yes, it very much is part of the works as part of our our operations, looking to get it done before the winter season starts. Yes.
Thank you.
Any other announcements or inquiries? Seeing none, I'll move on to 14A. That's moved by Councillor Ross and seconded by the Deputy Mayor that the confirming bylaw 2016-52 be signed and sealed by the Mayor and Clerk. All in favor of that? And that is carried, and we are adjourned at, I can't quite see the time there. Is it 8:15, Stacy? 8:17 p.m. And we got to take just a 3-minute break because Rogers has to change the tape from one meeting to the other, and then we'll get right to you fine folks.
this on, and then that way when you play the video, the sound will be for the whole room, and then the TV camera will also pick it up. It has to stay down there like that. And if you're going to speak, you should speak in this microphone. Thank you.
Presentation's cut down to 5 minutes. Finish at least. You only talk fast. They could. There's only two good teams. Montreal Canadiens and anyone that's getting it, they're trying to make all these fellas. I don't watch it anymore. Too many teams. I used to watch it with Dad. It was the 6 original teams. Yes.
I just came back from Montreal Monday.
Nice place, but I don't think I'd want to live there.
I'm not good.
I was going to say to you.
All righty, so we'll call ourselves to order for the committee of the whole meeting at 8:22. I'll call us to order for the committee of the whole meeting at 8:22. And look for a mover and seconder for tonight's agenda, please. Councillor LaRue, Councillor Lauder. Comments, questions on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll call for vote. All in favor? That is carried. Declaration of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. Does any council member have a pecuniary interest tonight? Seeing none at this time, if you find yourself in that position, let us know and we'll address it appropriately. And we'll move on to presentations and delegations. God love them for waiting so long. First one up is a presentation from Huronia Airport, 5-year business plan, and it's Roy Ellis. So Roy, welcome.
Takes a moment to get ready nowadays. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, Marshall, council staff, Rogers viewers, and guests in the audience for your time this evening. I'm going to talk a bit about transportation, but we've just got two accesses, northbound runway 34, southbound 16 for those who haven't visited the airport, but we will stay on that theme. So my name is Roy Ellis, and I'm a commissioner at Huronia Municipal Airport, and there are 7 commissioners in total, and 4 are community appointees, and the balance is comprised of 1 council rep and 3 owner municipalities, as you know, 1 council rep from 3 owner municipalities, namely the town of Midland, Penetanguishene, and the township of Tiny. John Smith is our airport manager, couldn't be with us this evening, and your council rep is Dan LaRose, and our condolences go to Dan and his family this evening. Mr. Don Cooper is your rep, your community rep, and he's also the chair of Huronia Airport. Our purpose tonight is to update you on the exciting happenings at the airport and provide a few highlights of our 5-year business plan. But first, a very welcome headline. Your airport is in good hands and is doing very well. You, the town of Penetanguishene, may not know this as individuals here, but you own 27% of the airport asset, and you contributed approximately $32,000 to its operating budget this year, plus $5,500 to support a loan necessary to repave 1,000 feet or 25% of the runway on the south side of the airport. The annual expenditure at the airport's averaged approximately $325,000, and we receive about 40% of that expenditure from the 3 member owner municipalities. So we can get this to work. This is the terminal building. The airport is situated on 350 acres and has a newly renovated terminal building. We're pleased to report that flight activity in hangar space has increased over 50% in the past 5 years. In fact, we've added a T-hangar building for 8 planes and are home to 21 individual hangars. And the good news, they're all fully occupied. In fact, we have 10 people on our waiting list. And later in the presentation, I'll share a plan to respond to that welcome demand. There's the T-hangar building with the red roof. It was federally funded to the tune of approximately $300,000 and is fully leased, while the individual hangars are all privately owned. The successful one-time federal grant to build the T-hangar serves up new and additional operating cash of approximately $30,000 annually. We're proud to advise In a very difficult economy, we've increased our revenue stream by 25% through the period 2011 to 15, which is the last period for our business plan. The three main revenue sources, as you would know, are aircraft-based storage fees, fuel sales, and leases to include both land and buildings. A couple of our partners, our principal lessee and tenant is Midland Instruments, and it's expanding and continues to add more professional staff. In fact, Midland Instruments is now doing work for the U.S. military and recently received a significant purchase order to install glass panel cockpits in aircraft known as the Metro 3. And there's about 800 of these aircraft still flying in the world today, and the solution for this advanced technology was pioneered right here at our airport. Neighboring Zen Air operates a significant manufacturing business adjacent to the airport, and they export their airplanes and related equipment to many countries around the world. And we remain extremely responsive to both our partners' growth needs, as again they produce good-paying, highly skilled, and technical jobs. You may have noticed a publication in the local Mirror several weeks ago called Progress 216. Along with the Mirror acknowledging the work of EDCNS and Weber Manufacturing, namely Chris Edwards and his team, they went on to highlight another significant business, namely Avionics Design Services, which is located Tiffin in Midland, right in the heart of Georgian Bay. Bob Gall, the founder, passionate pilot of ADS, started his business in his Wyvale home in the 90s and now employs 18 staff, engaged in generating and reviewing design data for aircraft modifications. This healthy and interdependent cluster of leading-edge activity in the aviation space finds North Simcoe's businesses once again on the global stage. The airport is also home to the Midland District Railway, motorcycle enthusiasts, and even the North Simcoe Astronomy Club. The pavilion. We actually boast about 40 highly engaged volunteers, and this is the primary reason our base operating costs are manageable, as we can get ongoing and additional projects performed and completed at minimal cost. And one example is our volunteers, or Friends of the Airport, or one example of our volunteers coming together and completing a project is building this exterior pavilion for the use of transient aviators and local guests. I'm sure you recall the Battle of Britain. 10,000 spectators over a 2-day period, and it was a huge success. Likely we're planning to host a vintage bike show next spring, which will attract upwards of 1,000 guests to the area. And as you can appreciate, those well-planned activities are intrinsically linked to North Simcoe's tourism and cultural efforts right here in the heart of Georgian Bay. Another significant value add for the community is the airport's logistical support provided to search and rescue, Ontario Hydro, and other emergency-type operations. The airport continues to act as an emergency response hub, providing for medevac of critically injured and ill patients, and can be utilized as a self-contained evacuation center during an environmental crisis, as we have full emergency backup power. Now, as for the economy, the impact annually is estimated at over $10 million, mainly with the increased flight activity, the employment, the expansion of aviation businesses that I mentioned, hangar development over the last 5 years, facility enhancements, and tourist events, to name but a few. So now let me please allow me to share a few projects and highlights of our business plan looking out over the next 5 years. Before I do, though, it should be noted that while the Airport Commission is confident that the airport is well positioned to maximize its growth potential, we remain mindful of the fact that the airport will require significant capital to move forward with some of the following initiatives. So we'll go through Letterman's top 10 list pretty quickly here, and then I'll come back and provide a little bit more texture on the top two. First, new aircraft storage and maintenance building facility to respond to the customer demand I mentioned earlier and our core operating needs. Upgrade of a fuel pumping and fuel storage facilities, number 2. Exploring land lease projects such as solar, and as you know, that's been sort of bifurcated right now, and we had a tentative deal signed because we are land rich. We have 350 acres of land at the airport, and it's our job to figure out how to maximize that as a landlord. Explore an airport cafe concept, which will attract and drive new revenue growth. Flight school expansion, don't let the name scare you. It's called Extreme Air for those with tummy acid. Explore LED lighting to help manage our significant operating costs. Existing hangar maintenance and upgrades. Runway taxiway, and I mentioned the 1,000 feet or 4,000 feet. And just by way of comparison, because we were asked this question in Midland, 4,000 feet is the size of Buttonville and Billy Bishop. So it's plenty long enough for our needs, and as you would all know, aviation is going to sort of smaller jets anyhow. And then a new commercial hangar and office space. So if I could start with the two top priorities and leave you with these thoughts, but I want to start with the second first, okay? Sorry to make it so complicated. And that is our targeted fuel pumping and storage facilities. Basically, we've had a very sharp fuel pricing strategy over the years where we position our price for pilots. It's funny how pilots will go a long way to save 5 cents on a liter of gas. But some of the things we have to do to make sure we stay in the game is offer more choice at the pumps for our guests, installing above-ground tanks to be environmentally friendly, and provide more efficient fuel dispensing capabilities for pilots and emergency services. This initiative is grant shelf ready and requires a total investment between $150,000 and $300,000. We're hopeful that through Infrastructure Ontario, that our reserves, through our reserves, we can finance the lion's share of the cost. But for the finance folks or the CAO in the room, you know, we want to just give you a heads up that that's something that we're looking at in 2018, 2019. And while we're diligent and vigilant to find this money, we may need some help. You may not know, but Infrastructure Ontario, Canada, because we don't have a scheduled airline service, they don't like to dole out the money. So we were very fortunate to get the T-Hangar grant 5 years ago. And so it's a key requirement is to have a scheduled service to access funds. In terms of the second initiative, which is the first initiative, which we hope to commence this year, it's basically a storage and maintenance building. Again, we have 10 folks on the waiting list. And this building will accommodate 6 to 7 aircraft, so paying customers, and will serve as a heated indoor maintenance facility for our airside heavy equipment. Our budget estimate is $250,000, and as noted earlier, we have 10 people on the list, and hangar space will fill quite quickly. In closing, there is a lot happening at your airport. The airport facility is a significant economic driver and remains key to moving people, product, and information, which is foundational for growth, as you know, in this new economy. So we thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you, Roy. Any questions for Roy in this? Certainly, Councillor Lauder.
Thanks, Your Worship. Roy, your last comment was very interesting, the scheduled service. Is that anything that the Huron Airport would ever entertain with possibly Buttonville or even something closer downtown Toronto as a access?
It's a great question. We've actually I've got somebody who is trying to broker a meeting with Porter Airlines, and an idea would be with all the cruise ships coming into town now, and I think next year they're scheduled, I want to say 22, thank you. There might be something we can do there and create that scheduled airline service. So we are looking at that as we speak. Thank you for the question.
Councillor Rawson, please.
Thank you. Just a comment and a question. One, I was talking to a physician friend, colleague of mine the other day who actually flies into Midland twice a month all summer and once a month all winter. And they've actually really commented on how it's really improved their access, provide patient care. 2,000 patients are providing care up here, and they spend $30,000 here a year. And that's just one person. They said, we fly in here all the time, and you know, it's just a great recognition what they do, and they're spending in our town. So I can see your impact, your financial impact. I can see that quite so. Another thing I would like to know about, and I appreciate the ownership piece, I appreciate the economic impact. It seems to me the person missing at the table is Tay Township. And I brought this up the last two budgets, and I know that there's been talk, but I want to know what kind of talk is happening, and what are we doing to get Tay to the table? Because I think they have as much opportunity to reap rewards as the other three municipalities are. And what can we do to help facilitate that? Because, you know, you were talking about some improvements that are needed and required, and the more people that are benefiting around the table, I think we can just help with that. So I would like to see what can we do to really make that happen.
So excellent question. Maybe you could help us. We've actually met with the mayors. Mayor Marshall knows this, and we've met Scotty. We've had the conversation about them buying a piece. It doesn't have to be 25%. The timing wasn't right, the last conversation we had. In fact, it's in my notes to do a deputation to Tay on the value and the economic benefit of the airport to the whole area, ACA, North Simcoe, under that umbrella. If you can help or you have some other ideas, that'd be great, but, you know, we're trying to create the pull right now because they're not ready. So I'm not sure, Mayor Marshall, if you can add any flavor to that, but...
We probably could. I'm right with Councillor Rossi, because I had the exact same thing. So our next presentation is about the power of 4.
Right.
EDC&S. The airport's about the power of 3, right? So to Councillor Rossing's point, so I know whether we can pass a resolution. Let's turn our minds to that, because we got to change. There will always be a reason to turn down spending money, right? Because you got all your capital pressures. But I mean, you just quoted Roy $10 million of economic impact. To Councillor Rossing's point, how does that distribute out? It's got to filter out into Tay Township with their beautiful waterfronts and in the Kiewat, and then they got the Discovery, or not Discovery Harbor, St. Marie among the Hurons, the Shrine. They've got those trails. There's no way that the airport's not adding value to that 4th municipality.
So my commitment to this team is that I will get on the deputation circuit. I was about to do that, and then the deputy mayor, as you know, stepped down. So I will get on that circuit, and I will sell the value of the airport, and wherever you can help, that's much appreciated.
What would 25% cost?
Well,
What are we talking about? What do we pay per annum?
$250,000.
37?
I think the valuation, and I'd have to defer to
So-
you know, financial folks.
Well, we're
Probably
paying
a million.
37, so it's
Yeah,
37 or
probably
less.
$1 million bucks. So, yeah, 250.
Yeah, annual support is what I'm thinking.
But
Okay,
again,
nice.
the ownership proportion is not, you know, it's not proportionate to each community, so it could be 10%, and it's $100,000, right, which is meaningful, so.
Yeah, no, I take that. I was just trying to think of the annual operations, because otherwise you maybe dip into reserves, right? But, I mean, we're power 4 in tourism, we're power 4 in economic development, and we're one shy at the table of the airport, and it's a frustration for sure. Deputy Mayor, please, and then Councillor Lauder.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, we've been trying to get Tay Township to buy into the Huron Airport for, I'd say, 25 years, perhaps. It's just, I think you really have to sell the economic benefit to them as well, and that might help. I guess we were hopeful when Skyline first came into the community that they would get on side, but I understand that hasn't quite happened, but I'm sure it'd be a tremendous asset to them as well.
Absolutely.
100% agree.
Councillor Lauder, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. No, I'm totally excited with what you've said, Ryan. I just want to continue on with the Heart of Georgia Bay and the EDC&S, but we also have our staple, our Severn Sound Environmental Association and our Severn Sound Stability. All these things, we're getting better because we can identify these entities that we get to share, and we get to all reap the benefits. So, no, I'm totally in favor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor.
Great, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Enjoy. And next is Sharon Bay for Economic Development Corporation in North Simcoe. The power of 4. And Kathy Ellis as well. Sorry, Kathy. I didn't see you sneaking up behind Sharon.
Through you, Your Worship, Mayor Marshall, councillors, staff, and guests, I am Sharon Vague, the Economic Development Director of the Economic Development Corporation of North Simcoe. I am pleased to present an update on our actions since our last presentation to you in May. Our focus is on the Investment Attraction Plan to drive investment and expansion, and some brief updates since our May presentation. The first update is the EDC&S board unanimously recruited Kathy Elson Beeford to the board of directors. Kathy will provide a few words on behalf of the board.
Thank you, Sharon. Good evening. I'm pleased to be part of this hands-on team. Okay, yes, thank you. Pleased to be part of this hands-on team that was formalized some 2 years ago. This volunteer board remains highly engaged to fulfill the vision of prosperity for our communities. Sharon is going to provide you with further detail, but we wanted you to know that the $300,000 funding from the county and the 4 municipalities has been leveraged to date to over $1 million being invested at the local level, and there's more in the pipeline as well. As you know, tourism, one of our 4 targeted areas of economic development, was our primary focus last year, In fact, in 2015, we took the bold step to form a destination marketing organization known as North Simcoe Tourism. North Simcoe Tourism has a separate and distinct board made up of some very talented and passionate members. It's important to point out that of the $300,000 funding commitment to us, EDCNS transferred $120,000 to North Simcoe Tourism, which they strategically used to leverage additional monies to promote tourism. Through EDCNS, we started updating councils in August on North Simcoe tourism activities. And one of the examples of that was the Heart of Georgian Bay TV series that you might have seen, not series, but the commercials that ran through the summer. The feedback and brand awareness created was very positive, and perhaps you saw the Heart of Georgian Bay commercials on television. We have you to thank. You are helping to support this area that we all love to live in, for sure. This year's primary focus is manufacturing. We are pleased with our local manufacturers' involvement driving continuing economic development through our quarterly manufacturers roundtable meetings and our successful 2016 Manufacturers Prosperity Summit. Thank you very much. We have a quote from Chris Edwards, President of Weber Manufacturing, which I'd like to share with you, and I quote, "I truly believe there's value in having a group of individuals focusing on economic growth for our community. With the help and support from EDCNS, we've been able to pull together like-minded industry leaders, government officials from both the townships and the county, plus involve local college and school boards in useful discussions regarding economic growth, skilled trades, developing partnerships, all while promoting North Simcoe." Chris, along with our partners at County, truly remain the catalyst for our collective success we have had in elevating skilled trades to a top-of-mind conversation, resulting in both job opportunities for our youth and providing the necessary talent for our local manufacturers who boast 3,600 employees and growing. Our 2016 goals, these were shared with you earlier this year and are in effect Sharon's work plan as defined by the board. Green means we're on track. Red means we need more energy or focus, and I'm happy to report that we're on track. Now I'm going to pass it back to Sharon to drill down on some of those 2016 goals and results for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Before I turn to the focus of today's presentation, there are dynamic EDCNS partners in the room that I wish to acknowledge. Roy Ellis, our Vice Chair, just presented the Huronia Airport. Kevin Cowie, our Chair, is in the room with us today. And Councillor Debbie Levy is on the EDCNS board representing the town of Penetanguishene. And thanks to Mayor Warden Jerry Marshall for supporting EDCNS at both the local and the county level. Flowing from the goals is the scorecard. Flawlessly executing the investment attraction plan is the focus of today's presentation. This scorecard is the roadmap to measure progress to achieve business investment. We maintain alignment with the municipalities and the county. 11 responses to requests for information were funneled through the county to the province. To better understand the value proposition around why set up business in North Simcoe and to more effectively market the area for business investment, we are conducting 2 surveys targeted toward 2,000 local businesses. Our goal is to achieve 1 new business investment in 2016 and 1 in 2017. Over 700 manufacturers have been contacted for a business opportunity. By the end of 2016, an additional 500 will know who we are and why they should set up shop in North Simcoe. There are 2 qualified prospects in the sales funnel for investment. One is Perimeter Solar. Roy mentioned this. A land lease agreement is in progress for a solar farm at the Huronia Airport, subject to certain conditions. Although the Ontario government just postponed the large renewable procurement program known as LRP2, Perimeter Solar remains committed to work with us. The second is a potential purchaser of the Pillsbury plant. Both General Mills and the prospect are working out fine details. Since December 2015, Over 30 visits by EDCNS representatives, municipal staff, and council have been made to the investor site and up to Midland to see the plant. It takes all of us working together, the power of four and more, to attract the right business to the right place to achieve the right success. As I said, manufacturing is our focus for 2016. By year's end, 4 manufacturing roundtables will have been completed with local manufacturers who represent 2,600 jobs of our 3,600 manufacturing jobs. EDCNS is promoted as a full partner on the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters website and will receive some notoriety in Ottawa this month. CME's goal is to double Canadian manufacturing jobs by 2030. CME is the largest Canadian association, representing over 10,000 manufacturers. North Simcoe's Fiber Internet initiative can place us at the front of the queue for swift rollout, further enabling manufacturing innovation. This is the agenda for the Prosperity Summit, showing the presenters. Rogers TV filmed the summit, which is airing now, and 2 films were produced this summer through EDCNS. I will show you a 2.5-minute clip of the Prosperity Summit video.
Welcome, everyone, manufacturers, partners, and guests. Along with Sharon, I'd like to personally welcome you to our Economic Development Corporation of North Simcoe's second Prosperity Summit, but this one's focused on accelerating advanced manufacturing growth. It's important to say out loud that our local manufacturing sector combined employs 3,600 employees in North Simcoe. These highly valued businesses in the room truly anchor our community in the sense they are significant contributors to the quality of life and prosperity that all of our residents enjoy.
One of the themes that we always talk about is partnership, the importance of leveraging and working with other like-minded groups. But what we want to do is to work with local manufacturers in their communities. Our goal is to double manufacturing output by 2030. And we have an initiative which we're calling Industry 2030, which is our foundational initiative to try and move that forward. One of the issues that I think we deal with as a sector is the whole image of manufacturing. Manufacturing has gone through huge challenges and will continue to go through huge challenges, but it is still a vibrant sector, and that's what we're trying to focus on, the successes and the benefits of manufacturing. But even more telling, I think, is the fact that we have almost 1.5 million jobs that are indirectly dependent on manufacturing. It's a huge crater of employment in other sectors.
We're educating the students and teachers about the importance of skilled trades, how to enter the trade, and the opportunities available to them with a trade certificate and training.
When you come up to business in North Simcoe or do business in North Simcoe, you open up access to innovation and new ideas, because that's the kind of people that we have here. School boards, colleges and universities, municipalities, and industry. We want to drive that collaboration. We want to drive that integration of those ideas and those processes.
As you saw, Doug Gowan represents Tech Forum, a division of Magna Closures here in Penetanguishene. He's our Secretary Treasurer. Now, this final slide brings us back to Kathy's introduction. The funders we have been working with to support the community. The Huronia Airport funding is being sourced to support infrastructure. EDCNS takes the lead role to submit agriculture sector funding. This pillar is a focus in 2017. In 2016, we will have applied to 5 funds which total over $138,000 for the Farm Fresh Food Fest event in 2017. The manufacturing community received $150,000 in repayable loans. This is a result of the 4 mayors and I holding a meeting in Ottawa in February 2015. Manufacturers are also in discussion with the Eve Landry Foundation, another outcome of the Prosperity Summit. A local funding model for manufacturers to market externally is in progress, and the county and municipalities have provided continued financial support to EDCNS in the amount of $300,000 in 2016. $120,000 of which Kathy mentioned is transferred to North Simcoe Tourism. In 2016, EDCNS was the catalyst in securing over $1.3 million for the community, exclusive of the additional funding that North Simcoe Tourism secured. The $1.16 million figure reflects funding received or approved to date. To summarize, you had a glimpse of an update since May with the focus on the Business Investment Execution Scorecard. We have supported the community with development funding of $1.3 million in 2016. We thank you, Penetanguishene Council, and all 4 North Simcoe municipalities for your continued support of EDCNS, and I am pleased to open the floor to your comments or questions.
Thank you, Sharon. Any questions or comments on the presentation? Okay, I've got a couple. So, yeah, good stuff. So just a couple here. So one is I get your, and Debbie Levy gets your confidential weekly updates, as does our CEO. So have we found a method by which we can get it to all the council? Because I think there's some good items. I understand that opportunities often have to be held in the background because of confidentiality rules and conversations. But we've got a secure website now that council members, we have to log in with a user ID and password that we can store that kind of information. So I challenge the EDCNS, because the challenge is you're doing great work. You're like an iceberg, right? So the community sees 10%. So you're coming to councils like ours, there's County and Simcoe, 4 municipalities saying, hey, you should fund me, I'm doing great work, and you can only tell me the tip of the iceberg, not the whole program. So I challenge you to find a way to have that whole program. I know in our case, we just launched it yesterday, I believe. So we got a secure site where we all log in for confidential information. So we got a home for it. So I suggest that. The other one was through you, Sharon, to Kevin, was in terms of fiber. The County of Simcoe has a GIS database of fiber, and so you probably reduce our cost of RFPs, disconnects if you actually access that fiber one. So I'd challenge the EDCNS to chase that opportunity. EDCNS has been silent because you talked a lot about manufacturing, and I appreciate that, doing great work. But one of the challenges we have for all our manufacturers up here is the Highway 400-404 link that's not on the plan for the province of Ontario to open up that transportation corridor to the east and west sides of Toronto. And I can tell you right now, our manufacturers today get phone calls late day saying, you're not going to get your delivery today, we're stuck in traffic, or we're not going to pick up your product today to get it out of Penetanguishene because we can't get through. Huge issue for us, and I think your voice should be at that as well. And then just finally, I love the manufacturing. What you've done in manufacturing is just fantastic. You got a car on the road and it's racing down the highway and you're doing awesome work. What's the next car on the road and how do we get it there? Because I'm not sure agriculture is that car. So do we have a thought of what is that next car? So manufacturing there, you've got Chris Edwards, we've got that group, they meet, they're engaged, we've got all the partnerships going on, we've got private sector, we've got municipalities, we've got EDCNS, we've got the county, we've got the province of Ontario, we've got the minister of the province of Ontario and and economic development engaged, right? What's next? So I challenge you to come up with another car on the track, because one car is not enough. As great as that car is, I challenge you that one car is just simply not enough. So I don't think there was a question in there, Sharon, so much as a soapbox maybe, but anyways. All right, Councillor Levy, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor Marshall, and thank you for the comments about sharing the information with council. It's been an ongoing frustration of mine, and I think the board knows this, is you come out once a year and summarize what you've been doing, but when I read the monthly reports, I'm like, gosh, we're good? Wow, what a great team, what great accomplishments. It's hard to compress into a 10-minute presentation, and I find it would be so much more powerful if we could keep all of our 4 councils informed and engaged 12 months of the year. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Worship and Councillor Levy. Just a little piece of information. Next week, we have on our board agenda for opening up the communication. So we're going to discuss that next Thursday.
Yeah, I think it's critical because you're doing outstanding work, and Ian's over there ready to write a story, and we can't give it to him, so let's do the best we can. All right, thank you so much, and wonderful work, and thanks for your patience waiting to present to us tonight. Really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on to next, Transportation and Environmental Services section. I'll turn the chair over to Councillor Rawson, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. 5A is our consent agenda. There's nothing on our agenda this evening. B is matters for consideration. Number 1 is the Roads Division salt tender. It's recommended that the proposed contract with K&S Windsor Salt Limited to supply highway salt for 3-year term for unit price of $58.89 plus HST be approved. That the proposed contract with Compass Minerals to supply treated salt for 3-year term for unit price of $83.75 plus HST be approved. A mover? Moved by Mayor Marshall, seconder. Councillor Lauder, any discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Number 2 is Drinking Water Quality Management System Document Management System upgrades. It's recommended that a 3-year agreement with Springboard Management be approved to provide a software upgrade from our current document management system to a cloud-based document management system for the Drinking Water Quality Management System, and the staff be directed to bring forward the necessary bylaw for council approval. A mover? Councillor Mayotte, and a seconder? Councillor Leroux. Any discussion? Councillor Lauder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may, to Brian, I keep reading, we read it last time also, that we did have a failure and limited risk. Is there any risk? We're missing some data, so what is our exposure right now, or is there anything?
Brian?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Lauder. Our current system right now is a desktop-based system where we have a backup being provided by our own servers. The current software is antiquated. It's about 7 years old, and this new software is a web-based program, so it's no longer on installed on a desktop. It actually can be accessed anywhere there's a internet connection, and it also comes with data backup through a cloud-based system. So there is no on-site storage of data, which is very attractive to us. It doesn't. It takes the responsibility of backing up the data away from us, and it's provided on an off-site server that the company would provide.
Councillor Lauder?
Absolutely, I understand and I agree with that. I'm just wondering, because once again, the notes talk about corrupted files, 2 corrupted drives, and we've recovered most of the information.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Is there any exposure that we have to worry about currently from our past data?
No. We have actually managed to recover many of the files that we need to move forward. So it was a close call, so to speak, but we managed to recover a lot of our files. Yes.
Any other discussion? Brian or Kerry, I just have one. I brought this up last time about the capabilities of CSolve with doing backup with them with our existing infrastructure, and we deferred this last time because we were going to get more information from CSolve on that. So I'm just wondering what the update is on that.
Thank you. I did ask the Water Division about that. We could go through that option. We would still need a document management software system to provide us with the document management that we need for our DWQMS system, which would provide us with the software we need for that. Which would be able to back up on site, and CSolve could help us with that. It would require a totally new software system, and in this option, we did look at completely switching over to a new software system and doing it on site. It had a high initial costs associated with that, so we asked for a quote from our current provider, which is Springboard Management, and through their new software upgrade, they're switching or transitioning away from a desktop-based system to entirely cloud-based system, which is beneficial to us because it allows us to access our data anywhere there's an internet connection.
Great. Any further questions? Call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? That is carried. Number 3 is the OCIF funding contribution agreements. Recommended that a contribution agreement with Her Majesty the Queen of the Right of Ontario is represented by the Minister of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs for the provision of Ontario Community Infrastructure formula-based funding for 2017 to 19 be authorized, and the staff be directed to bring forward the necessary bylaw for council approval. A mover. Deputy Mayor, seconder. Councilor Mayette. Any discussion on this item? Call for the vote. All in favor? And opposed? And that is carried. Number 4 is a verbal update from the director regarding the sewage treatment plant. Brian, is there any update, or will you same as last time?
I would say that we were progressing with the addressing of the deficiency items. I don't have a revised update to give in terms of the number of them, but we are making progress in that respect. The contractor is not progressing, I would say, satisfactory. They're taking quite a while to address a lot of them, so we're putting deadline dates to a lot of these deficiencies. So being that as it may, we do have approximately 200 items, but a lot of those items are fairly minor. The biggest deficiency that we have to date is the grit removal system at $950,000. The remaining 200 and some odd deficiencies have a total value of less than $90,000.
Thanks, Brian. Any questions for Ryan on this item? Councilor Mayette?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question, I don't know if you answered it yes or no here, but like the mayor was saying at the last meeting, like we're not worried about the doorknobs or the window not closing, but you said you had about 5 or 7 of them that were major ones. How are those coming along?
Those are the items actually that we're actually setting deadlines to, so that if the contractor does not address them under the contract, we're going to take it upon ourselves to address it and credit the contract.
And when's the deadline? Or
we had some deadlined as October 15th, and those are occupancy-related items. And the remaining of those items, or larger items, is October 31st.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Next is the verbal update regarding Champlain Road construction update. Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are substantially completed the project. All facets, all contracts are substantially completed to date. The base stabilization contract has been substantially completed for quite some time with Rotomil. And the paving to date, as most of the people that would travel on Champlain Road is completed. We do have about, I think, 3 or 4 driveways that to be paved. The shouldering is actually ongoing right now on the road, and other than a few outstanding driveway connections and some deficiencies, the project will be substantially completed.
Thanks, Brian. Any questions for Brian on this? C is the referrals to upcoming agenda and staff. Does anybody have any additions or revisions they'd like to make? I just have one, and I'm just going to echo a comment Councilor Lauder brought up a little while ago. And it was about the tendering process and the low bid and the pre-qualification of tenders in consideration for Main Street. And I wonder if we should have a discussion in the future about the tendering process for Main Street so we know what we're getting into before, or if we're good with it status quo. Councilor Lauder?
I'd like to second the fact that I believe a discussion so that council's aware of the procedures. And in a quick discussion, I think what's going to be important is exactly what Brian puts out in order to get the RFP. So I would like a discussion, so I'd like to second that motion.
So we'll call for that vote, so the Main Street tender process. So I'll move that, second by Councilor Lauder. So all in favor? And opposed? That's carried. Any other additions for agenda items? So I'll read the agenda. So that the Transportation Environmental Service section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. Thompson Road extension options, key performance measurements for road operations, best practices for the redevelopment of Main Street, Seven Sound Environmental Association Park Maintenance Plan, Pantangation Bus Identification, Septuagint Hulled Waste EA Update, Champlain Road Weight Limits, and the Main Street Tender Package. All mover, Councillor LaRue and Councillor Lauder. Call for the vote. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Questions from the media and public? And your worship, Teeny's complete.
Thank you very much. And go over to Recreation and Community Services, and I'll turn the chair over to Councillor LaRue, please.
Recommended action that the following consent agenda items having been given due consideration be received for information. Curling Club minutes dated September 7, 2016 and September 23, 2016. Trails Committee minutes dated September 13, 2016, and correspondence from the Georgian Bay Trails Group, disbandment of Georgian Bay Trails, GBT disbanding. Any concerns, questions? A mover, Your Worship, seconder, Councillor Levy, all in favor. Moving us on to matters for consideration, referrals to upcoming agenda. Tourism, advertising, print on online for future consideration, investigate advertising company opportunities, recreation asset management plan, parks, facilities, arena benches, options for comfort, cycle strategy, curling club operations review, county lease agreement, Old Fire Hall emergency services, and outdoor skating rink. And I'm wondering, Your Worship, should we perhaps add on here the clearing of the snow on the waterfront trail?
I think it'll come through notice of motion, so I think we'll formally, Councillor Rossen was looking to make a solid decision on that 2 weeks, so I think we're okay.
So
I'll look
we'll
to Councillor
leave it
Rossen because I know that's his
Okay.
motion. Yep.
Councillor Rossen.
Yeah, thank you. I just have one. Last museum meeting, it came up that the museum roof is in worse repair than they thought, and the budget amount is going to be double what was anticipated. It needs to be done sooner than later. So my question is, Brian seems to do a great job finding funding opportunities. I know we did one a little while ago for the arena roof. I just would like to put on a referral here that we look to funding opportunities for things like that, because when I found that out a couple weeks ago, I'm like, caught us off guard. So I just like to put it in there that, you know, capital improvements for assets, and that we look at that, and specifically museum roof.
Your Worship.
I guess we'll look to the CAO. That's a little disturbing because that should be coming up from staff to, we got a roof issue, council, we need to address it, right? So either address it in the budget or address it through funding. But I guess I looked to our CEO maybe circling back as to, with staff, as to how that was disconnected, didn't get us, you know. I love that Councillor Rossen's chairing the committee and bringing it forward, but in this particular case, this item should have been percolating up through staff side.
Through you, Your Worship, certainly, I mean, in terms of funding opportunities, staff is constantly looking at funding opportunities for our infrastructure, facilities, etc. In terms of this specific request, aside from hearing it tonight, it wasn't something that I was aware of, but certainly something that we can have the conversation about, and certainly via the budget process, it's something that we could address. I'm not sure that. I think I'm not sure that it needs to be a future agenda item. I'm happy if it's what a council to add it as a future agenda item, but please know that certainly we're constantly looking at grant opportunities, and particularly I'd like to gather a little more information around this specific request.
Thank you very much.
Okay, there being nothing further, can I have a mover? Your Worship and Deputy Mayor Dubois. Thank you. We're done.
Anything on RCS, Ian?
Questions from the media? Nope. Okay.
Okay. All righty, so we'll move over to Planning and Community Development Services, and I'll turn the chair over to Councillor Levy, please.
Thank you very much, Mayor Marshall. We'll start with the consent agenda. Recommended action that the following consent agenda items, having been given due consideration, be received for information. 1, notice of adoption of official plan amendment source protection plan County of Simcoe. 2, SSEA award nomination request. 3, downtown improvement committee meetings. 4, committee of adjustment minutes. Do I have a mover? Councillor LaRue, seconded. Deputy Mayor Dubois. Any discussion? Oh, no, there's no discussion. It's consent agenda. All those in favor? Thank you. Under matters for consideration, PD 1669 Coordinated Land Use Review. Recommended action that the town of Penetanguishene submit comments to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs with respect to the Coordinated Land Use Planning Review in keeping generally with the recommendations in Staff Report PD 2016-69 and as outlined below. That primary settlement areas in the outer ring be exempt from the proposed excess land policies, that an update to the built boundary be considered by the province, and that consideration and clarification be given to the lands which have been developed in the 10 intervening years since the built boundary was finalized. That the intensification targets remain unchanged for the County of Simcoe. That the density targets remain unchanged for the County of Simcoe. That the official plan confirmation to the in-force growth plan 2006 and recently approved County of Simcoe official plan. And that further direction and timing be established by the province, and that the town work with county to determine a collaborative approach to the implementation of a growth plan. And finally, that consideration be given to the creation of a growth plan implementation committee led by the county and comprised of representatives from lower tier municipalities or some variation thereto. Well, don't ask me to repeat that. So, first of all, do I have a mover for this? Mayor Marshall, seconded by Councillor Louder. I'll give a brief backgrounder here. About a month and a half ago, this came to Committee of the Whole to look at our response to the province about them playing with the density and intensification numbers again under the growth plan. We haven't even worked their prior numbers into our official plan amendment, and now they're asking to change the whole game again. And so we're saying, we're asking that the numbers remain the same as they are currently, and this is our planner's response to that. Councillor Louder and I, when we realized the significance of what the province was trying to do, did meet with Andrea in a meeting where she briefed us quite thoroughly on her position, and this is her written position on this. She can't be with us tonight, but CAO Lees has some background on this, the mayor has some background on this, certainly Councillor Louder and I have. So if there are any questions on Andrea's report, we'll do our best to couple together a response. Seeing none. Oh, Deputy Mayor, do it.
We discussed this at the county level this past Tuesday, so this is in conformity. It's along the same lines as what the county is submitting. I do believe.
Yes, and our planner has been working with the county on her response, and will continue to work with county planners. So this was actually, Mayor Marshall raised this when it came a month and a half ago or so, the importance of us as individual municipalities having a coordinated response to the province. So I do thank you, Mayor Marshall, for pointing that out, and we ran with that and did make it something that was important on our radar.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Louder?
Thank you, Madam Chair. That's exactly what I wanted to point out, that this is not a decision that we're making ourselves as Penetanguishene, but really our director, Andrea, has been in close communication and consultation with the county, and we are getting this similar response. So we are seeing that these things that we're requesting of the province is consistent with many, many small municipalities such as ourselves. So I did want to point that out, that we are working with the community, with the county, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Louder. Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And carried. Thank you very much. And we're up to referrals to upcoming agenda staff. Referrals at the Planning and Community Development Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. Promotion of development and growth annually, Thompson Road West Extension, development charges, targeted incentives and opportunities, legal opinion on draft approved subdivision, land inventory analysis, agribusiness in the industrial zone, and secondary suite report. Does, additions, or you're moving it? Okay, Mayor Marshall?
I'm not too sure, and I'd have to look to maybe Councillor Levy or Lauder in terms of development charges, targeted incentives, and opportunities. I sat down with the Minister of Economic Development last week and his staff after that, and they talked about the community improvement programs and connecting those programs to upper tier. And so there's, if you look at the city of Welland, who landed that GE opportunity, 265 jobs, and I forget, $300 million plant, so on and so forth. It landed because one of the reasons it landed, top three reasons, was the town of Welland and the upper tier government of Niagara region had a CIP in place that really connected those dots and made good things happen in a meaningful fashion. And if you think about the upper tier, they have the ability and financial bandwidth to absorb items that the lower tiers would struggle with. So when we look at that one, I don't know whether we want to leave it as development charges and targeted incentives, or can we change that to investigate CIP? I guess long way of saying I think we should be looking at a CIP, and I think you're close to it in development charges, but the CIP is just a little past that.
How about we add it to this line, because there still we've never had any meaningful discussion on how a municipality can potentially accomplish certain goals with waiving development charges, et cetera. It's bold and it's controversial, but it has been known to work to direct things like intensification in the downtown core, various things. So I wanted it on the table simply to have the discussion, and there's no rush on it. It will be part and parcel of the official plan update and zoning amendment. But we haven't had it yet, but someday we will, and we'll tie in the CIP. I don't even know what a CIP is at this point, but I've got an idea.
I won't take you down the path.
Okay.
Whatever the chair and vice chair are fine with, I just think we should have that conversation.
Okay, so we'll just add CIP, Stacy, to the line of development charges, targeted incentives. Okay. Did I have a mover and a seconder on that? Yes, I did. Okay, good for me. All in favor? And carried. Thank you very much. Question period from the media and public? Seeing none? Okay.
Thank you very much. I move over to Finance and Corporate Services, and I'll turn the chair over to the Deputy Mayor, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, in consent agenda, we have no items. We have one item under matters for consideration, access to town-owned communication towers and facilities policy report. The recommended action is that the access to town-owned communication towers and facilities policy be approved as presented, and that the fee schedule option number 2 be approved as Appendix 1 to this policy. This was before us 2 weeks ago, I believe, and it was sent back for further review. Our treasurer is with us this evening, Carrie, so I will ask Carrie just to outline what changes have been made, if any. I think the fee schedule has changed for sure. I'll ask Carrie to speak and then ask if there are questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The report has been updated based on discussion that took place 2 weeks ago when it was presented to you, as well as council's comments that I heard at that meeting. I was directed at the last meeting to call Point-to-Point Communications, who is looking to access our communication towers and facilities. And based on that conversation, it would be in terms of a shared services agreement whereby in their case, council's direction was offer them access to our sites at no charge to offset the existing monitoring costs that we currently pay to that company. So in my mind, that basically set a value of sorts in terms of moving forward and amending this policy. So what I did present was 3 options, one being the original option based on the sites and the 3 different fees related to the size of those towers or sites at $50 a month, $100 a month, or $150 a month. The second option, based on some of the comments I heard at the last meeting, was 2 fees to access one site for $500 a month, or you can access any or all sites for $1,450 a month. And the third option was just to a hybrid of the first option and just basically charge $150 for any of our sites, per site, per month. Again, I spoke about the other municipalities that are in agreements with other users using their facilities, and the standard fee being about $150 per month for that. However, when you look at other arrangements that we have become aware of in terms of shared services, it went to a farther extreme in terms of costs that a company may pay. So basically, I am recommending option 2. If somebody wanted to come in and access one communication tower, they could do so for $500 a month, which would go towards offsetting our existing costs of monitoring all of our sites. Again, if somebody wanted to access all of our sites, they would need to be very serious about the benefit to them or the financial benefit to them, because the fee of $1,450 a month or $17,000 and change per year. So I'll leave that with council's questions and to make a decision on the option.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Certainly, I support that recommendation, Carrie. I think this a lot of work for staff and something that's really, a minor detail in the overall operations of the town. Somebody buying that at $500 a month, chances are slim and next to none. Well, let's put this issue to bed, put it out there at $500. If nobody bites, and then you look at the marketplace and say maybe we overstretched. So I'll certainly support this. I think for the amount of money we're talking, for the amount of effort staff have put into back and forth on this, I think your recommendation is fine, and I'd certainly support moving forward with it.
Thank you. Further comments? Councillor LaRue?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too would support option 2. I think that there's a lot of work that has gone into this, and I think that the cost is not in excess of what the service is being given, so I will support it as well.
Thank you. Councillor Louder?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I may have mentioned that 500 last time, and in all honesty, when I was thinking about it, I was thinking of having just the 2 prices, 500 and the full price. The lower price would be for an appropriate 3 sites. However, in reading your notes and reading the obligation that we're under with respect to the total cost of maintenance and everything else, and it is, we're talking about businesses coming in and trying to utilize our sites. I totally agree with the 2 prices, and I'm happy with the one site for 500 and the all sites for 1,450. So I do like option 2. Thank you.
Thank you. Further comments? I just would like to point out that we have made exemption, I guess, for La Clé de la Baie who have access on one of our towers. They're paying a fee, and that is a contract that's in place till 2020. Is that correct, Carrie?
Correct, yes.
Yes, okay, because that's a non-profit, so we'll have to deal with that at that time. Thank you. Yes, Councillor
Sorry,
Louder.
thank you. And absolutely fine if we deal with it at that time, but I was just looking at your first statement, I was thinking that they're going to be grandfathered and maintained on their, a similar contract to where they are right now throughout time, but, if we want to deal with it at the end of this contract, absolutely. Thank you.
Very good. If there's no further comments, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Referrals to upcoming agendas, that the Finance and Corporate Services section endorse the following additional and existing referrals to upcoming agendas and staff. Resident reporting system, community engagement initiatives, land sale policy review, minutes distribution timetable, taxi licensing review, sign bylaw review, smoking policy on parks and on town property, election 2018 timelines. Is there anything that anyone would like to add?
Next page still.
Oh. 2017 budget for special events, composite fee schedule comparison, insurance joint RFP review, banking services RFP, review, fire services review, Town of Midland partnership in the spring of 2017. Is there any other item that we need to add? Your worship.
Thank you very much. I think staff, I'd like to make somebody support this as staff. Right now, we're up to 37 referral items. And so the staff can spend all day long working on referral items, not get any work done of the actual day. So I'd like for staff report to come back to us and go, what is the appropriate amount of referral items per section or per director? And so we can manage that. And then the debate for council will be, let's say the number 6 items and somebody wants to add a 7th, then council can have the healthy debate about adding taking something off the list to put something else on the list. Otherwise, 37 reports, and we add them here. We added 3 tonight with wild abandon. The reality is we've got a small staff in the town of Penetanguishene. We can't be spending all day looking at our laptops and not getting out in the field, not working with our staff, not meeting with citizens, not running our budgets. So I find the referral items are very burdensome for staff, and I'm very concerned about staff's ability to execute the referral items and actually complete their day-to-day jobs going forward. So I'd look for a seconder to put that on the table for staff to get back with us, because at the end of the day, you're at the receiving end of this conversation. So if I get a seconder, fine. If not, that's fine too. Seconded by the deputy mayor. So adding number 38 to the list.
And you have an item, yes?
So I would like to add 39. And it's a resolution for the North Simcoe communities regarding the T Township joining up with the airport.
All right, so noted. Yes, you need a seconder for that. Do we have a seconder for that? Oh, Councillor Mayotte. Thank you. And we are working on our taxi bylaw finally. There's a date set for a joint meeting. And certainly the smoking policy, that probably will come in the new year. All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Carried. Question period from the media? None. Thank you.
All righty, and I'll look for somebody to move to adjourn. Councillor Rawson and Councillor Mayotte, and all in favor? And we are adjourned at 9:29. Good stuff. Well done tonight. Good work.
Watch what she's gonna do there. I've got emails in here since 2014. Here's about, it's only 2,800 or something. 14. No, 2,300. Yeah.